And the other thing was, I ended up.
That's how I got you back.
Oh, Jesus. You don't want that.
No, well, I did.
Holy
Oh, it's been an awful. It's been an awful.
Well, that's not good. That's one of the things. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I can go, okay, I want to change my.
Everybody, the doctor's office, everybody goes, hello?
Oh, you didn't see the
I,
email?
one day,
Come here.
I put a Q-tip up there,
No.
pull it out, this goddamn tip.
I guess he's just got too much work.
Infuse antibiotics every day.
Oh,
But I guess it was said he had too much
Ticks,
work.
ticks. Oh, yeah.
So,
And I didn't get Lyme
go
disease.
super quick.
You must have run into a fault.
I'm so
yeah.
glad to see you here.
Because there was a company called Lyme RX. They were gonna come up with a vaccine.
Oh, really?
And he selected Eversource because Connecticut had the highest season of Lyme in the country. Lyme disease. And I would come out of the Buffalo right away. 50, 60.
Oh, yeah.
And so they looked for volunteers. So there were 3 shots.
No.
There was one a year later, another one, and then 30 days after. Like there were 9
such a
months.
surge.
The whole system.
First time
all
ever.
three.
I
I
know.
was
I've
wondering,
learned a massive
and they quit because the side effects were as bad or worse than when I took it.
Okay.
And I've never had an issue, but
I got,
ticks are horrible.
God, well,
I
that's
got
what I was
about
wondering.
30 acres of hay. I'm a ER that hay every year. And when I get done,
Got you. Okay.
I'm in the,
absolutely.
On your property?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't, you know,
Okay, where it's
how much
just
land do you
the-
actually own?
it's a disgrace.
Oh, okay.
Friggin' horses.
Right.
Yeah.
One's got 4 in the yard.
So my
That's actually
father-in-law
one of
said
my
years ago,
questions for this
you
group.
understand, well, there's more horses faster than wild horses.
Yeah, yeah, goddamn expensive lawnmower.
Oh, yeah, if only.
Yeah, I can't complain. They ride all the time.
Yeah.
That's their daughter's big thing. But it's a lot of work.
Hi, Scott.
We had 7 when we lived in, when I was in Concord, we had 7 in the backyard.
I got
At the
12,
most,
well, I had 12 one time.
We've changed our mind. We're postponing the meeting until after midnight.
Okay, but we are there.
It will take me a bit to read this. Want me to just start? Wait, okay.
He's in town.
He was here this morning for.
Just drove in,
Yeah, he was.
just drove in. Just drove into the park.
Did he bring coffee? Looks like we need it.
He's,
I came prepared.
I don't-
Smarter than. the
I don't
rest
know
of
that he can carry coffee and
us. Oh. yeah,
skip along at the
No,
same time.
He did last time.
He was gonna say, he
He came in with on
it
crutches.
wasn't pretty, but he.
Yeah.
There's really nothing wrong with his leg. He just looking for sympathy.
Sympathy, yeah, the sympathy. box, yeah.
There you go.
Handicap parking.
I see him at Hannaford's one day, and I'm like, you want a hand? No, no, I'm good. He's, I'm like, I'll help you. No.
Rob, are we recording? I'll be
I don't care
careful what I
anybody
say.
says About Charlie, I don't think he's a bad guy. I don't know how come. you know,
How Can we all throw him under the bus?
Yeah.
Oh, he's done a one crutch.
No, it's up to you. Entirely, I'm just-
Oh, yeah.
With that.
May I start?
Yes, I am. Can you tell my wife dressed me?
Oh, yeah.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the City of Laconia Planning Board. It is Tuesday, January 4th. This meeting will be held in person in conformance to New Hampshire RSA 91A. A quorum of the board's members must be physically present in the meeting room for the meeting to start. The public can choose to attend and participate in person or by Zoom. If something occurs that disables access to Zoom, the meeting will continue regardless, and members of the public or board members using Zoom will have no recourse. Choosing to use Zoom is done at the individual's risk. Using Zoom requires the use of an enabled device. To participate, use the following link: https://zoom.us/join. The webinar ID is 862-1431-8389. To listen only, call 1-646-558-8656 or 1-301-715-8592. Using this option only allows you to listen to the meeting with no opportunity to participate. To view this meeting, YouTube under the City of Laconia, https://www.youtube.com/Laconia, New Hampshire. If any board member is using Zoom, they must identify their location and who else is in the room with them. If at least one board member is on Zoom, all votes taken will be by roll call vote. The meeting will continue even if the member's Zoom connection is lost. And we will have a call to order. Which I probably just did.
Yep.
My apologies, everyone. This is my second time chairing. Please be kind. Now we will do a roll call.
Okay, roll call in Kirk Biotti,
Present.
Charlie St. Clair,
Here.
Bruce Cheney,
Here.
Richard McNeil,
Present.
Brett Bellevue on Zoom.
Zoomed.
Brett,
Is he on mute?
I asked him to unmute.
Remote and alone, if you can hear me.
yes, thank you.
Cece,
Yes.
Michael Delavecchia,
Here.
Sarah Jenna, Scott McWilliam.
Present.
Okay, our recording secretary is Taylor Daigle. Our staff in attendance is Rob Mora and Dean Trefethan. And we are going to move right on to the acceptance of minutes from December 7th. Any discussion? We need a motion.
You could just declare them.
I declare them accepted and okay, so 8.1 has requested to continue to February 1st. Could somebody make a motion for the continuance?
Make a motion to continue EL 2021-0137 SP 0138 SU for 23 Summit Ave.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Ready to roll call?
Kirk Biotti,
Yes.
Charlie St. Clair,
Yes.
Bruce Cheney.
Yes.
Richard McNeil,
Yes.
Brett Bellevue,
Yes,
Lisa Susie,
Yes.
Michael Delavecchia,
Yes.
Scott McWilliam.
Yes.
Okay, moving on to 9.1 PL 2021, which has already been accepted. This is the proposal to construct self-storage facility. Okay, and we do have.
Hi.
We have a guest.
There's questions back in that you may be able to. happened to the big board?
Your guess is as good as mine.
For the folks in the audience. My name is Nick Schedule. I'm from Steve Smith and Associates, representing the owner. Professional engineer, civil engineer working on the project. And, Don Demers, who is the owner, is also on Zoom, so he may chime in if we ask him to, if you have questions. But this is a project in the commercial industrial zone off Waterford Place over near Lily Pond, right on the town line with Guilford. So it's this is the tax map. Waterford Place comes off of Lily Pond Road, and this is the property at the very dead end of it. The proposed use is for self-storage. The existing use is more or less just a gravel driveway and an existing outbuilding kind of barn type structure. The site's been graded in the past in terms of some fill that's been placed out there. And more or less, we're trying to utilize the upland part of the property where that disturbance has already occurred. And you can kind of see on the contours where that limit of previous disturbance on the site is. We are asking for a special exception for impacts to the wetland buffer. And we did get, I guess, a recommendation from the Conservation Commission with some comments and notes to consider. There's an existing water line that transects the site, a city-owned water line that's in an easement. Part of the project will be just relocating that. Site grading is going to require us to impact the grades over the top of the water line, which requires us to kind of more or less keep the same alignment, but regrade and reprofile the water line so that's not too deep or too shallow. So we want to maintain the water line at a 6 to 8 foot depth. So in order for our site grading to work, to be accomplished, there's some reconfiguration of the water line on the site. And generally, so I mentioned there's an existing 12-inch corrugated plastic culvert to enter the site on an unimproved driveway. And then more or less the site drains from the north to the south. These are the wetlands and wetland buffers. And then further south onto the site, it abuts up to where Lily Pond is, that wetland. For the proposed site plan, we've got just improvements to the driveway, widening the driveway to provide access for two-way traffic in and out. And then a configuration of 5 storage unit buildings, various square footages and kind of various configurations based on kind of a cookie cutter metal type building, and then partitions within to separate out units. It's completely self-contained, so they aren't going to have an office. This is the way self-storage units are being dealt with is online reservations, and then you would make a reservation through an online or phone, and then meet with the facility manager at the site if you need to pick up keys. We'll have minimal site lighting attached to the buildings to provide security, and then some security camera on site to just provide a closed circuit television type feed for the security. Mostly the improvements are driveway and parking for the use, and then the other improvements are dealing with stormwater management and stormwater and drainage. We have series of catch basins with sumps to collect runoff, and those concentrate to a underground storage and detention system, which it then releases back to environment at basically at the pre-development rates. So no increase in runoff as a result of the project and provide treatment through infiltration with the on-site storage. That's kind of the basics, I think. Some of the we'll have erosion control during construction. That was one of the points from Conservation Commission. Silt sock or a wood chip berm, and then we talked about not using salt for winter maintenance, so the owner would be willing to not use a salt for that, but rather just do sanding and plowing. So give staff the opportunity or questions from the board.
Oh, we have many questions. Kirk?
The entrance driveway, is the entrance into it gated at all?
It's not going to
It
be gated.
won't be, okay. All right, thank you.
I have a question for,
Oh, hang on, I'm
I'm
just gonna
sorry.
go in order.
Okay.
Charlie?
Let's just think of the worst case scenario, and there's a problem there. Maybe something's leaking out of a storage shed or something like that, and your security picks it up. How far away would be this management person that people can go online to schedule the pickup keys? How far away would those people be that could react to something like that?
I don't know that that person has been determined for this site. It's typically like a regional person. So, I'm not sure exactly what the response time is, but in terms of an emergency, I assume that the person would call for emergency services rather than the office manager. That would be the case even if something was, leaking from a unit, but I don't know if Don's available to speak about that.
Because you're right, this is a secluded area. So it's not like people driving by, like many of the storage units in the area. It's secluded, so that's what I just wondered about.
Yeah, I mean, it's on a dead end, yeah, and away from things, but I think there's going to be a routine requirement for the site manager to visit the site on a routine basis to make sure that there aren't issues that are popping up on a routine basis. And then my expectation would be it's somebody regionally, someone in the half hour to probably half hour would be a reasonable response time for somebody locally. I
Hey, Nick, I don't know if you can hear me.
can barely hear you, Don.
Okay, the property will be visited every day for somewhat hours. And the management, which would be me, is right in Alton, just over the Guilford line.
So he said the site would be visited at least once a day during daylight hours, and that he's going to be the manager and he lives on the Alton line. Is that what you said?
The Guilford Alton line.
Guilford Alton line. So, I mean, that's probably a 15 to 20 minute response at the most.
Did you have a question, Counselor?
I actually have three, if I might. You mentioned, I'm not sure exactly what you mentioned, but you discussed the water lines. And is this going to require movement of the lines or just a regrading of?
It's going to require the line to come out of service and physically be taken apart and relayed at a new elevation, but it'll be along the same alignment. So where the water line exists now, there's an easement for the city to maintain it. The city owns that water line, and we'll be basically putting it back in that same easement in the same alignment.
Okay. I guess my second question is, have we discussed this with the water department?
Yes.
Okay. My second question is the height of the buildings, the maximum height of the buildings.
I believe they are at the highest points. They're 14 or 16 feet tall.
Okay.
That is
And
correct.
is there an intent to fence this area? And if so, the height of those as well?
There's no fence planned for the
Okay.
site.
My last question is I don't mean to sound critical, that's not my intent, but you were a little casual as far as I was concerned about runoff and where it was going. So I was kind of hoping you could
Sure.
expand on that a little. Once the water goes into that catch basin, that final, what is, because it sounded like at some point that water is going to end up in Lily Pond.
Yeah, so like, I mean, we're not going to be able to change the way water runs off the site from how it runs off the site today. So we would just try and match existing conditions. So in order to do that, we're putting catch basins. So along between the buildings, there'll be drive aisles and there'll be catch basins along that drive aisle between the buildings, and those catch basins tie together with pipes. And then those pipes would go to a underground detention system. So it's, you know, a buried pond, stormwater pond, just like you would do for typical development. You would detain stormwater based on the rate that's coming off of the paved areas. So that is like a proprietary system that's pipes that are connected together and buried under the pavement. They have observation ports so that you can, you know, do maintenance on the system, and they're backfilled with a crushed stone. So that area provides storage for peak events so that, you know, all the runoff concentrates there, and then it's released through a smaller diameter pipe so that we match the runoff that's going to the wetland now. So it there's a plan in the packet that shows the stormwater system. And you can see it's kind of a series of catch basins that at the end of each of these drive aisles, there's catch basins, and those all tie together to come to a point. And then this is an underground detention system where water is stored and then infiltrates down. And then this is the outlet system where basically we need to have, if it pours on that site today, it's going to run off at a certain rate. And if it pours on that site when this is developed, it's going to still run off. You're not going to stop that, but you're going to store it and keep it at the same rate. So we've just basically matched the 2-year and 25-year storm events.
But getting back to his question, there's spillage. It gets into that system. What have you got? I mean, right now, we don't have to worry about water or oil going into Lily Pond. If people store, as I'm sure they will, lawnmowers or
Antique car, anything
antique
that could
cars,
leak.
whatever, and they leak. We have other projects where they have warning systems in the catch basin to warn.
Or
about that.
imbiber beads, something that prevents a petroleum product from going into.
So, I mean, I think anything that's going to be stored is going to be stored in a building on a flat surface, and it's not designed to drain. Those building, you know, anything stored in the building isn't designed to get into the drainage system.
Just laid plans.
It's a metal building with a metal girt laid on a concrete slab. It's not watertight.
Right.
10 gallons
So
is going to
then-
come out of that
So
building.
then it would go to the catch basin. The catch basins have sumps in them. So basically you would want to try and catch it before it got to the catch basin, or while it's at the catch basin, and you could clean that closest catch basin where the runoff is going to. Ideally, you would deal with it before it would be exposed to any kind of runoff. So best management practices would be to do dry cleanup and then trap it at the next catch basin. And those have sumps in them that would be able to trap it. We could, you know, one thing we've done is potentially we could put a snout or a outlet device on this last catch basin on either side that would, prevent, at least gives you a chance to see floatables
Put in an
and,
oil water separator at those points.
yeah, I mean, I don't know that it would, I guess I was thinking more of like I think they call them snouts, and it's basically a hood over the outlet of the pipe. And so anything,
Designed if the
yeah,
oil products on top, it's gonna force the
Exactly.
water down,
Yeah.
correct. It's just, that runoff is right into Lily Pond at that point.
Yeah.
There is no chance of any filtration from, soil, whatever at that point. So, and again, in a storage facility, you don't know what somebody puts in there.
And I'd certainly like to see your efforts deal with that problem.
yeah, I mean, I think from an owner standpoint, they don't want people storing things that are leaking.
Of course they don't.
So I would expect that would be something that they have part of their management system to make sure that that's not happening.
Yeah, but if he visits the site at 10 o'clock and I'm there at 2 o'clock, put my lawnmower in and get that crap out of it so that I don't have to deal with it till the spring.
Or you tip it over by accident.
Or you tip it over, yeah, whatever. What I'm saying is I'd like to see, I would really feel more comfortable for me to approve this project, to see some effort to protect Lily Pond beyond, we let it all congregate in this
Mhm.
place and then at what some rate, it goes back in or it goes to Lily Pond. Today, whatever runoff there is water. This has the potential to be more than just water. And therefore, I'd like to see some attempt made to deal with that. That's my question.
Scott?
Thank you. The surrounding the buildings, is that going, where the catch basin, is that gravel or asphalt?
Asphalt.
Asphalt,
Yep.
okay. And this storm management system, does it require annual maintenance? Would
Yeah,
it be
there's an
maintained?
O&M plan for it. There's a routine maintenance at different intervals, depending on which task you're doing. So certainly the catch basins get monitored at a certain level for accumulation of material in the sump so that they can be cleaned out.
All right.
And the manufacturer has recommendations on the maintenance of the stormwater system.
And these buildings will be typical self-storage, boxy, flat roof, orange doors.
Typical, I don't know about orange doors, but I think you can probably have a pretty good picture of what they look like.
Actually, I had pitched roofs.
They are
That-
pitched roofs, yeah,
Okay,
but boxy. I mean,
Mhm.
they're relatively flat pitch on the roof.
any other questions? Were you able to talk to the owner about the remaining acreage going into a conservation easement?
We've discussed it. He's, I think at this point, he's hesitant to do it just because of wanting to get the project moving forward and get stuff, under construction. And I think dealing with that component of it would add time. I don't think it's, based on my understanding of the property and what's available that's not wetland, I would not expect any future development on the site, but I think there's, at this point, there's not really a desire to put it into conservation.
Got you, okay.
I
Yes.
have a question, if I may. During technical review, we had talked about a restroom facility. Will there be a restroom facility here?
There will not. So because we're not having the office, we're not going to have any employees on site. In order to provide a restroom, we would have to extend sewer, which is a fairly large expense for the project. If they were going to have anybody on site, as an employee, they would, make that commitment to extend sewer onto the site, but that's not part of the plan.
Dumpster on site?
I don't think we show one on the site plan. There's no plan to have one on site. We could place one on site and keep it screened pretty easily.
Because without a gate, I can envision this being a place where people, once they figure it out, they're just gonna back up and dump.
Yeah, Don, there's no plan for a dumpster, correct?
With a dumpster.
No, there was a plan, there was a plan for a gate, though.
It is planned for a gate.
It is. Yes.
My mistake.
No, that's okay. We would just have to address the locking of the
Knox
gate
box.
and either a Knox box or which would probably be fine. We can work that out through fire prevention when.
Any other,
I just want
Questions?
that added to the requirements that we have access.
Yeah. I would just like to ask the planning director if the planning department is satisfied with this current storm water management system. I'm concerned about the petroleum products as well. Typically, there would be a separation type of system to prevent any petroleum products from flowing off of the site.
Strictly from a stormwater maintenance standpoint, we are satisfied with the plan. The detention system acts as an infiltration. That's the primary distribution of the stormwater. It's the outflow from that should only be during higher rain events. I hear your concern about potential petroleum spills. I think we can, if the board desires, I think we can figure out a system at an appropriate spot within the drainage system to address that matter.
okay. Any other questions? Does this now go to a public hearing? Yes. Going to open the public hearing at 7:02. If there are any members of the audience that would like to ask any questions? Anyone on Zoom? And in the interest of time, we will close the public hearing at 7:02. And I believe I need a motion. No, I don't. I need staff recommendation.
So they have met with the Conservation Commission. They were concerned about the discharge to Lily Pond as well. They were also concerned about some invasive species vegetation that are on the site that will be taken care of. Everything, all the other conditions are pretty much boilerplate. I'm trying to think where we're going to add fire department access.
Should there be anything, if they're going to use sand only instead of salt? Should there be a requirement that the sand be all picked up in the spring so it doesn't go sailing into the lake?
That would be part of their ongoing maintenance program that they're going to have to do for their stormwater maintenance to keep it out of their sump pumps. We can add the access to fire department, the gate under. Why don't we add an H? Fire department access. And then I will leave it up to the board to decide what you want to do about the enhancement to the spill management. Whether you want staff to handle that or whether you want them to come back to the board.
Dean, I'm sorry, I didn't,
You could have either staff handle the spill
the
enhancement.
water, yeah, okay.
Or you could have them come back to the board.
I'm fine with the staff.
Staff,
handling it.
okay.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm fine with
Yes.
that.
all right, we'll make that aye.
Yes.
Other than that, we recommend approval.
Oh, sorry, I just had one more question. for you.
Sure.
I mean, you may have said it when I stepped out. I apologize. Is all the structure in Laconia?
Yes.
They are, okay. All right, thanks.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I don't know if you got an address from Chris.
Yeah. Right, currently, the property has a artisan court address, which is a Guilford Street. And that was because of the way the property was originally owned and subdivided over the years. The actual access for this project will be from Waterford Place, which is also Guilford Street, but they already have a driveway from on Waterford to their property. So there are no issues, and DPW is going to issue them a new address for Waterford Place so that they receive a 911 call there. People would go into the right section of.
It'll be
Of the city.
Waterford Place, Laconia, though?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
I'd like to make a motion.
Thank you.
Make a motion that we accept PL 2021 -0130 SP 0131 CUP Artisan Court / Waterford Place proposal to construct self-storage facility, to accept the application as submitted, but to include under item 2 recommended conditions, to include H, provide fire department access to the locked gate. And item I, added, staff will work to enhance stormwater management system.
Second.
Thank you. We need to do a roll call.
William,
Yes.
Michael Delavecchia,
Approve.
Brett Bellevue,
Yes.
Richard McNeil,
Yes.
Bruce Cheney,
Yes,
Charlie St. Clair,
Yes.
Kirk Biotti,
Yes.
Stacy Susan.
Yes. Thank you and good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, next up. I believe PL 2021-0141 SP 100 New Salem Street needs acceptance. Is the application complete?
Yes, it is.
And I just need a motion to accept.
Make a motion to accept. And here we go. PO 2021-0141 SP 100 New Salem Street.
Second.
Thank you.
Kirk Biotti.
Yes.
Charlie St. Clair,
Yes.
Bruce Cheney,
yes,
Richard McNeil,
Yes.
Brett Bellevue,
Yes.
Michael Delavecchia,
Yes.
Scott McWilliam,
Yes.
Stacy Susan.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Hello. So I'm Dawn Longdale and this is Dave, my husband. What is Isaiah 61 Cafe? Those who have never entered our doors might think that we are merely a soup kitchen, providing food to the poor. Some might call us enablers to the poor. However, those who have taken the time to enter our doors would say we are a respite, a place of hope in a dark world, an organization run entirely by volunteers, sharing unconditional love to those the world considers unlovely. Who comes to Isaiah 61 Cafe? Those suffering from mental illness, drug addictions, alcohol addictions, as well as those who have conquered addictions, but are trying to get to the next level of sober living. Some have no addictions at all, but are lonely and find community at the cafe, keeping them out of depression. Why do we do what we do? In the book of Matthew, chapter 25, verses 35 to 36, when you saw me hungry, you fed me. When you found me thirsty, you gave me drink. When I had no place to stay, you invited me in. And when I was poorly clothed, you covered me. When I was sick, you tenderly cared for me. And when I was in prison, you visited me. And verse 40 says, when you cared for one of the least of these, you demonstrated love for me. We are doing what God has commissioned us to do, all to do. How many more would be freed from the chains of addiction by having shelter from the cold? I believe if you were in their shoes, you too might try to numb the pain. This shelter will not only protect lives, but it will give purpose to those who overcome their addictions by allowing them to give back. So we are here proposing that we will turn a portion, 1,754 square feet of our original building at 100 New Salem Street, to be a low barrier cold weather emergency overnight shelter. To comply with the state of New Hampshire's fire code, this shelter will be open from December to March, the 4 coldest months of the year. The hours of operation will be 8 p.m. to 8:30 a.m. 7 days a week. Deputy Raffo has stated that the occupancy load is 33 people, including the supervisors. We will offer advanced sign up for our cafe guests. Once they sign up, the bed remains theirs as long as they are consistent in attendance. If they miss more than 2 nights in a row, the bed opens for others. We will have 2 supervisors on site every night. They will reside in a lounge area on the same floor as the beds, but divided by barn doors. We will have a monitor for them to watch for any unruly behavior. Supervisors will park in the 2 spots located in front of the glass doors where lighting is operational through a censored spotlight. Our overnight guests will check in between 8 and 9 p.m. through the side door, where all belongings except for cell phones will be turned in and stored with no access. Guests will be allowed cigarette breaks during the check-in hour. Lights out at 10 and no further admittance is allowed except emergency situations direct from the hospital or by police accompaniment. If a guest chooses to leave during the night through the push bar on the back door, they will not be allowed to return until the following night. Similar to our daytime policy, our guests must comply to the rules of proper behavior. Anyone with disruptive, non-compliant behavior will be asked to leave for the night. Our guests will be allowed to use the restroom facilities only. No laundry, showers, or cooking will be offered. Pittman's building will be locked and secured from any admittance. We have exterior cameras to alert if anyone chooses to hang outside on the property after check-in hours. The supervisors will be watchful and ensure compliance.
Strategically, 100 New Salem Street is the perfect location for a Laconia emergency low barrier shelter. It is where our friends congregate mostly. There's not an issue so much in Lakeport. There's not an issue in the Wares. The issue is in downtown Laconia. And we are positioned strategically with the police department being on our back, their back parking lot is our back parking lot. So response time is cut down if there's a need for services to be rendered. They don't have to drive halfway across the city to render services. They're right there in our backyard. And that's not by accident. During our last zoning board meeting, there were some issues that brought up that there's like a chaos situation going on at the cafe. And it disturbed me a little bit. So I did a little research into the police logs and just wanted to kind of go over some of the statistics. And many times by a detective within the Laconia PD, he's told me many times that we run a tight ship. And these statistics, I'll go through my neighbors and then the cafe. 104 New Salem Street in 2017, prior to the cafe opening, there were 2 police logs to that location. In 2021, after 3 years of being open, that same location, there's a police log of 1 call. So the actual call volume has gone down, and that 1 call had nothing to do with the cafe being the next door neighbor. Similar to 77 New Salem Street, apartment B, which is a storage facility owned by Mr. Bean. 2017, he had 1 police log to his location. 2021, he's had 0 police logs to his location. Isaiah 61, yeah, occasionally we need service, and we deal with some people that are not the healthiest in the world, and sometimes there's medical assistance required. Sometimes there's grievances that need additional support. Sometimes there's belligerence that needs to be taken care of, and if they're following the rules, we call for assistance. We run a tight ship. In 2021, we had a total of 45 incidents or logs. When you dig down into those numbers, at least 10, maybe more, were actually the Laconia Police Department serving paperwork and warrants and arrests because they know where our friends reside, and it's easier for them to actually go to the cafe. That since has been to our request to cease and desist serving warrants at the cafe. So 45, it sounds like it might be a lot, but technically when you look at the log calls for the library, the cafe is much quieter than a library because they've had 91 calls as of 11/22, which is when I requested these log dates. So we do run a tight ship, and our friends that come in respect us. They obey our rules, and they know the consequences if they don't. We love Laconia. We have investment in Laconia. We have 4 apartment buildings that we've renovated and could have started a reality show really. We did one after the other. It was pretty cool. But we fell in love with the area, and looking between the seams, you see a population that's in dire need, and our calling through crisis has compelled us to reach out and help. And it's a win-win situation for Laconia. They're now having to displace emergency situations in expensive hotels during the cold winter months. It's a win situation for our friends to get out of the cold and have a warm place for them to lay their head. I don't think anyone should be outside in the temperatures that we experience in the winter months. It's about time something like this takes place in Laconia.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I know I had dozens of questions, but did I just questions. Did anybody want to start, or? And I'll just start again from, go ahead, Charlie.
Thank you. I have a question about your overnight supervision. Are these people paid or are they volunteers?
So it's going to be a combination.
Combination? So there'll be like
Combination.
one paid person there and one volunteer?
Well, it's not what we're hoping. We're going to be having volunteers that are from outside coming in. And we also will have people who have gone through sobriety and will also be hooked up with somebody who is from outside. So in that, we want to encourage and motivate them to get to the next level, the ones that are coming from within. So we would assist them with rent later, at a later point when they're in the need of that.
You'll have to forgive me because people that know me know I'm always looking at the half empty glass.
Okay,
Trying to figure out a way to say that.
yeah.
So if they're not paid staff,
Mhm.
worst case scenario again, maybe they both just say, you know what, we're tired, we're going home. They just disappear. What is your plan of something like that?
Well, you can
So
see the
first-
commitment of our staff.
Yeah, if you,
Yeah, so you just
Um,
figure that'll never happen.
well, we have a 3-year track record. We have all volunteer staff. There's no pay
That's your
whatsoever.
answer. Okay.
And they're
if you're
doing it.
volunteering your time, that's where your heart is.
Again, you have to understand where I'm looking at this,
So-
but that's fine. That's.
And that's why we keep it all volunteer. It's not something I feel that you should be paid for. It should be a calling. And our volunteers, it's their calling to come up and help those in need. And so will there be occasional call in sick? It could be. And if that happens, unfortunately, we wouldn't be able to open that night.
Okay,
Because by state law, we have to have 2.
Okay, that's, I guess that's what I wanted to hear. And this, I know it says emergency cold, but it's cold every night, those months. So basically it'll be, like you said, January, February,
December
March,
through
every night.
March.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. December, great.
Counselor?
I have a couple of questions that sort of follow along with his. I read here that the load is 33 people, including the supervisors. And in there, it talks about they will reside in a lounge area on the same floor as the beds. But I don't see a lounge area in the same.
Is there a couch? You see the couch? It's a couch, I think. Did you put a couch in the drawing? Can I come show you?
Of course. Either one of these.
All right, so this is where all the beds are.
Yeah.
And this is where the couch is, we're calling it a lounge area.
Ah, okay.
So it's right there. It's very close.
So that position will allow them to supervise the bathrooms because you have to go through the doors to go to the bathrooms. It'll separate the TV. I mean, we want coffee and TV things for them to stay awake with. So it'll separate the light from the TV and the noise from the TV. There'll also be a security monitor right next to it as well. So they'll be able to see any activity going on. And we'll do, the roll call once, as we work out the protocols, once every so many hours, do a walkthrough.
I read in here that they'll not be allowed to use showers. But they
Correct.
will, is that correct?
Correct.
Yes,
Yeah,
But they will be allowed to use the bathroom. Is
of
that correct?
course. Yes.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Because we have 2 shower rooms that
Right.
don't have toilets and we have 2 bathrooms that have.
I guess my
toilets.
issue is there's only one bathroom.
No,
Yeah,
there's 2.
I don't know why the blueprint, the smaller, it's labeled bathroom, but it doesn't show the facility there.
You want me to show you?
Oh, here we go again.
Okay. Where am I? Okay, so this is actually, but it says it right there too, bathroom and a bathroom. There's a toilet and a sink in that little tiny
We
thing.
got to come to an agreement on the size of the print.
I know. It's trying to fit a lot in a 8.5 by
That'd be
11.
funny.
I can't read the blueprints.
I happen to have,
I do have it on my computer. If you need it to be blown up on screen, I could do that.
well, I'm going to ask the staff before I'm prepared to go forward to check the RSAs about staffing, whether they're volunteers or paid. I think there's some statutory language and I regret that I didn't do the proper look into that before tonight. But before I'm prepared to vote, I want to be sure we're requiring the proper number of people and the proper background, whether they have to have any special background to supervise this kind of population.
And I'll just reiterate, my question was, the volunteers, their training and qualifications, what would that be?
What were they last year when you opened up the cold weather shelter for the city for the couple nights?
Couldn't tell you.
But they were able to do that without issue.
That's out of my scope.
Yes, we had we did have a couple of smaller sized ones that were done, and it was done through volunteer.
Through the cafe volunteers that supported the couple nights it was open.
On Church Street?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, because there was some that weren't through the cafe too, that was
Yeah, there was a
volunteering there, but yeah, it was a
combination,
combination, yes.
Yeah, so those were volunteers. So there
Yeah.
wasn't an issue for the city last year.
No, a smaller number of people.
Okay.
Total, but
Just want to make
Just
sure I
because it
understand.
wasn't a concern for the city doesn't mean it shouldn't be
Yeah.
a concern for the city.
Yeah.
You know, you want to do the best for those folks that you can, and
Absolutely.
nobody here disagrees with that, in my estimation.
Mhm.
But I think some of us are concerned that it A, meets statutory requirements,
Sure.
and B, that it be properly done. We have an obligation to, if we're going to approve this,
Right.
to assure ourselves that you're doing it
So
properly.
am I allowed to ask questions? back?
Oh, of course.
Okay, go ahead.
So you would ask statutory wise what the requirements are on staffing. So I have this from the state of New Hampshire, right from the fire marshal.
Does it say RSA anything?
It says RSA 153.
That's the one I'm looking for.
Okay, so it says staffing.
Yep.
Shelter shall be staffed by a minimum of 2 awake and alert individuals when occupants are sleeping.
can I just throw something in now, because that's a
Yes.
good time to say it, because
Yes.
we obviously have it. So what she's referencing is an amendment to the state fire code that was put out probably 3 years ago now through the state fire marshal for the purposes of allowing temporary cold weather emergency shelters with some specific guidelines that allow it to bend a little bit, the state fire code, without breaking it, to allow this to happen. So
But-
that's what she's referencing that
Right,
from.
but Chief, this isn't temporary.
It
is
meets the
temporary.
requirement for temporary, 120 days.
But they're going to continue to do it.
It resets every year.
What it allows is a 120-day window. As to, so it'd be 120 days, and then again, next winter would be another 120, and that's what this would allow. Just
I
to
still-
explain, yeah.
I'd
Yeah.
still like a review of the RSA to be sure that we're meeting the requirements of the RSA, because the fire marshal may well have set these temporary requirements. That doesn't necessarily mean that other parts of the RSA's don't have some other requirements. And I'd like a brief review to make sure we're not missing something. Look, I have to be real on it. You may or may not know, I'm a retired cop, so I'm probably not the most sympathetic soul on the planet. Just that's 25 years of doing that kind of work.
I'm sorry.
But I think what you're doing is a good idea. I just question whether A, this is the place, and B, whether we're doing it the way it's supposed to be done. I'm prepared to vote for you, but first I have to know. I haven't been in your portion of the building. I hate to admit this to you. 40 years ago, I owned the other part of the building, so I know what it looks like.
I have it on a PowerPoint presentation. In terms of, I lost my train of thought.
I do it all
The
time.
perfect, the location. I'm a little perplexed by that statement because the location couldn't be better.
Wait a minute. I heard you talk about the police department's right next
Yes.
door. I ran the place for 13 years. They better not all be in the police station. They better, most of
That
them
is
be out
true.
on the road.
That-
And they're gonna take 10 minutes to get there
That is true.
from
There's-
Lakeport, the Weirs, Ward 1, wherever.
But you're taking away the intimidation factor too, that some feel with the police station being right there.
Okay,
It does.
I hear what you're saying, but
And we're not downtown where all the businesses are. We're on the outskirts
Yeah.
of the downtown.
Yeah, our goal is to
So-
draw them in off of the street, off of the alleys, off of
Business fronts.
neighbors' porches and into. a
listen, I
subdivision.
suspect the police department's gonna be thrilled to have you there. They'll probably be one of your better customers as time goes on.
Yeah, there's
Uh,
been quite a few people sleeping on the bench.
But I just want to make sure it's being done right.
Sure. So on that, all that was I was gonna say, in terms of done right, that comment, we didn't pull the rules out of the air. We, Don during the summer investigated and went to other facilities in Concord and Manchester and pulled their best practices in terms of how they're doing it. And that's how we came up with these rules and best practices for how we're doing it.
I would have liked to have seen those rules and best
We would have
practices.
had to go on a road trip with her during the summer.
My wife would object, but other than that, everything's fine. I have a beautiful wife, but she doesn't like me riding with other beautiful women, I can assure you. You have, he knows my wife, that's why he's laughing. You have rules that these folks are gonna be told, these are our rules, I take it,
Mhm.
or they're on the wall or whatever. Any chance you could ship us a copy of those?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
For sure.
See, I don't have to go anywhere.
So you've actually answered some of my questions. I was wondering if you had seen the Concord shelters in Manchester. Are any of the other providers in the city helping you?
What do you mean by that? Who do you mean by providers?
City
Like, I
welfare.
know in Concord, there's tons of communication and help between all the resources for everybody.
Well, the only other shelters, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, is
The
anybody?
only other shelters are Carey House and Belknap House, and they both require sobriety. So we're trying to get the hole and fill that hole where there's no place for the people that have not conquered sobriety.
Got you. Okay, so you guys are really at it alone.
That's what low barrier is, meaning that they're
Right.
able to come in with substances inside of them, their bodies. And as long as they follow the rules, they're able to stay.
Okay,
Yeah, so we don't anticipate having families or children there. They're already covered under the Belknap House. Or people coming in from a rehab might go to the Carey House. That community is already covered within those two facilities. What we're covering is the gap in between those.
okay, that was actually one of my other questions, if it was going to be open to everybody, men, women, kids, pets.
It's open to men and women.
Okay, is there any like any privacy at all for?
There'll be movable privacy walls depending on the dynamics of that night. To separate. the men
Oh,
and the women.
okay, that's what the lines on the diagram are. Those are portable walls or?
I think those lines are dimensions.
Ah,
Yeah,
Yes, they
that's just
are.
dimensions.
Yeah. So right now it's split, 6 bunk beds on one side, 6 bunk beds on the other side, which would give us an even count of 12 female, 12 male, with the divider in between. That count may not be even like that. So depending on where the count falls, the bunk beds, you can break them down easily too. So you can take the top bunk off and move it around. So the walls, the separators are portable based on the dynamics of that night. But right now it's 50-50.
Got you. Okay, so it does offer some privacy.
Yes,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay, got you. If somebody is disruptive, a worst case scenario, like 1, 2 a.m., would the police be called to assist
If
the
they don't leave.
supervisors?
If they refuse to leave the property, yes.
Okay. Sorry, last question. If somebody shows up displaying COVID symptoms, unfortunately, this doesn't seem like it's going away. And do you have test kits or would you be able to quarantine or?
We would not be able to quarantine, not in the close confined space that we have for the overnight shelter.
So do you have a plan for that?
Well,
Or?
we would do the rapid test that you can do now. And if they're COVID positive, we wouldn't allow them to come in. We'd have to send them away.
Could you speak up on that? I missed what you were saying.
They would take the rapid test, the COVID test, and if it comes back positive, they would not be able to stay, only if they're showing symptoms. We're not going to test everyone that walks through the door. So it'd be on a case-by-case basis.
Okay. We have not had any, amazingly, God is so good. He's protected the cafe. We have not had to do any of that.
That you're aware of.
The cafe.
You don't test everybody, so that you're aware of. You've had nobody with symptoms, right?
Yeah, I didn't hear
Yes,
that
that
last one.
were.
I said that you're aware of. I mean, you could have had somebody come in not showing symptoms that, because you just don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true, I
nice.
guess.
Okay.
We're not really worried about it.
I'm sorry?
Nothing, no.
Any other questions for Don and Dave?
I
Scott?
do have several questions for the applicant. What's the plan if there's no available beds? It's filled up and somebody shows, I mean, you mentioned some kind of reservation system.
So-
Can you explain that?
Yeah, so, and our hope is that we'll be getting people from within, that come to the cafe. So we'll have an early sign up for the beds in the cafe.
So you don't foresee issues with, oh, sorry, we're full and people are out in the parking lot hoping to get a bed and there isn't any?
I mean, I really think we're gonna fill up with our people that we have at the cafe already. And I mean, if it's filled up.
I'm just
then we
wondering what, if you have
say,
to turn
"Please leave,"
someone
if
away,
it's
what's,
filled up.
what's the plan there? Any plan at all?
So legally, we can have 31 residents with our 2 volunteers. So right now we have 24 bunk beds with 2 pull-out, backup beds. We're looking to support the Lakes region and not the state. So from what we know in the homeless population and those that will come to the facility, we're pretty confident that within that 31 bed count, we'll hit the number. Could there be a possibility where we hit 32 and someone is turned away? That could happen, and it would be an unfortunate situation, but we have to obey by the rules put in front of us. And unfortunately, they wouldn't be allowed to stay.
Okay. I have a question about outdoor lighting. I walk past there quite a bit at night and portions of the building are pretty well lit, but the area, I guess, where the playground equipment is, seems dark to me. Is there existing
light there.
lighting there that just isn't being
Yeah,
utilized
there's a
currently?
motion light. So if someone was there, the motion light would come on at that playground area
In
where the
that
tables
area.
are.
Okay.
So if you're walking the wild trail, you wouldn't see that unless you came on the property and walked through the side yard.
Okay, so it's motion activated. Is there a reason why you've asked the police department to cease and desist from serving warrants at the,
It wasn't so much a cease and desist, it was to come up with a better protocol on doing it. Just because of the sensitivity of the impression of what a homeless shelter is and our friends that come in and what we're doing inside of it. Where you pull a police log and you see so many calls, but you don't look at the details, it's confusing to the community exactly what's happening within the cafe. So we have a very close working relationship with the Laconia PD and we'll continue to do that.
okay. And question for Chief Beatty, if I may. A facility like this, Chief, I would imagine there has to be a fire plan, exits, which way to turn, if there is an emergency, all that has to be posted
Correct.
on the walls.
Yeah, that's all part of the plan that Don
Uh-huh.
was.
Is there a
was
plan for
referencing.
like emergency lights to go on or anything like that?
Yes, I think they're
So that
right.
part of the
They had
fire
they had to have the emergency lights in there.
Emergency
It's-
lighting?
that we have them doing a full fire alarm system, the emergency lights, and the exits and all that as well. With the awake people, it makes it a little bit easier as well. There's a built-in safety, but with having a wake person as well, for evacuation purposes.
Thank you. There's one last question for the planning director. If you could clarify, Dean, where the fencing, the required fencing is going to, I see this black, it's not all the way around there. No,
No, it's, here's your thing, if you
Yeah.
don't mind. The proposal would be for along the property line between the present cafe area and the 104 New Salem, and then probably wrapping around a little bit to the back.
okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Stacy, I have a question if I may.
Yes, Brett.
Okay, I was just wondering, so we talked about the 12 sets of bunk beds, which accommodate 24 people, and there was a mention of 2 pull-out. So that's 26, and with the 2 supervisors, that's 28, and the allowable occupancy is 33. So what happens if we're at full occupancy? Does that mean 5 people are crashing on the floor, inhibiting egress, or what do the extra 5 people do?
So it would be 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. Yeah, so it would be 5. If it's a consistent overage of 5 people, we would buy additional bunk beds to accommodate that. Right now, our plan is to use cots to do anything over and above the head count we have now, the 24 plus the 2 rollout beds. So they would be put on cots, and in that situation, the cots would have to be put closer to the supervisor station for space requirement, to be able to space out a little bit more.
Good.
Did that answer your question, Brett?
Yeah, I guess so, just so that there's a plan, because I'm looking at the floor plan there, and where the bunk beds are, there's not really much room left. So yeah, it would have to be through the barn doors out by the supervisor station.
Correct.
Because I'm assuming once you guys get established, I'm thinking you guys will probably be filled every night.
Was there a question over
I
here?
did.
Yes.
Part of this is an assurance that this won't spill over into the warehouse or now the cafe portion of the building. Is that correct?
Correct, that would be locked. They would not be able to access that.
Thanks.
Charlie?
I don't know why, but I feel I'm treading on thin ice with you guys on this question. So don't get wound up on me, please.
Oh, go ahead.
These are tight quarters for sure. I mean,
Absolutely.
you don't have a lot of room for the luxury of having everybody spread out. Whether people want to believe it or not, there are people getting sick on a regular basis with this virus. People are dying from it, whether you believe it or not.
I believe.
And I suspect that a lot of the people that are your visitors, probably not on health plans where they get to go to the doctors on a regular basis unless it's an emergency or something like that, for regular checkups. You've indicated to me that you're only going to be checking people if they show symptoms.
Correct.
I get that. I'm not sure. I could tell somebody's symptoms unless they're coughing a lot, and I would be, geez, I wonder if they've got the virus or just a cold. I don't know. But I don't think that you're really, and I'm just jumping to conclusions, so you can slap me down and correct me. But I'm getting the impression that you guys aren't really being proactive on that, other than looking at symptoms. I don't know if you're asking people if they've been vaccinated. The vaccines are free. I don't know if you're requiring masks in there. Again, these are close proximities. And when somebody gets sick, they're sick. It's not a matter of saying, geez, I hope they get better. We all hope that's going to happen. But with some people, they don't have the best immune systems. They don't have they're not in the best health, especially if they've got these other issues that you're talking about. Sure. So I just really, again, will ask you, if your protocol there is more than just kind of looking, or are you going to be more proactive into maybe requiring masks, maybe checking everybody, making very sure that nobody that is going to innocently be subjected to getting sick because their neighbor in the next bed wasn't caught, and now they spread it to them.
Sure. One, I don't think masks will work. I don't think people will sleep with a mask on their face. That's my personal opinion. But in terms of the close proximity, many of these people that will be using the value of the shelter are already at the cafe with each other during the day, sitting, laughing, sharing jokes, things like that. So they're already around each other. We're not bringing new people into an environment that they're just not already into. Secondly, in terms of the health situation, we've just partnered with Health First And they'll be coming in on Friday, providing medical services for our friends. So we take their health very serious. And
So will they be checking people for,
that's
testing you?
something we could ask them to do.
Would ask
They
them to
will
do
have
that?
they will have a nurse, a medical doctor. They'll be seeing our friends for sicknesses and being able to prescribe medication, antibiotics, things like
But you
that.
would ask them to test everybody?
To test, to come for overnight? No,
Just, do they come in on a regular basis and just?
yeah, we're not gonna start testing our
You're
friends
not-
that come in. No,
Okay,
sir.
that's what I wanted. All right, thank you.
And we haven't lost anyone at the cafe from
Well,
the
you never
COVID
do until you
virus.
do.
Right,
So I don't want to see it to get, we ever lose anybody
no.
from here to the eternity.
If you look at what our friends are going through, COVID is not the issue that's killing them. It's the addiction to fentanyl
Yeah.
and the overdose. If you look at the state statistics and the federal statistics in that age group, it's not, COVID is a non-issue. It's the overdose. It's the being in the elements.
Well, and I get that, but I'm suspecting from my experience, having a business downtown and going to other businesses downtown, that the people that hang out at the cafe and stuff aren't just there. They go to other places, they go to other businesses and other places downtown. So it's not like you can say to me.
So are you asking like the library to start testing all patrons that come into the library and Dunkin' Donuts and
Hey,
McDonald's? I mean, what are you saying here?
A lot of places do require stuff like that. So, but we're talking about this place here, again, where people are compromised due to other issues. That may or may not compromise their immune systems and stuff like that. So that's why I'm asking, that's all I'm
No, I
asking.
appreciate the question.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions?
Before you go to public hearing, I think I'd like to address Council Cheney's question. It may be helpful for those in the audience as well. So my understanding of the emergency shelter from the fire marshal is that it supersedes most of the other RSAs in terms of shelters and those kinds of things. And it was done for a specific reason. However, it does not override any of the code considerations, i.e. occupancy, which the fire department has figured out, the fire alarm system, and those kinds of things, egress, emergency lighting, et cetera, et cetera. It does not negate any of those items. I think the only thing that it probably, from a code standpoint, that probably alleviates is not having a requirement to be sprinkled, although we may get there at some point in time, but because it's temporary, and I hear you and I agree, it's for 4 months, probably every year. But under the definition, that's considered the temporary cold shelter. And so we have been relying and will continue to rely greatly on the fire department, because it's these things that are directly in their purview from a standpoint of occupancy, the fire alarm, egress, those kinds of things. And we have great working relationship with the fire department. And then the other thing I wanted to address was Charlie's comment, and I appreciate you bringing up the concern, and the health condition or the health situation, I guess, is certainly within the purview of the board, but I don't think that is the main focus or the main question that's before the board, before you tonight. And I think really the two main questions is this the right location, or one of the right locations, and is it going to be operated in a way that makes sense? Those are the two questions. Those are the same two questions that you would have for any site plan that would come to this board from a standpoint of any business. Is this the right location? Is it going to be run properly? Now,
You just answered it right there.
I'm just saying that this is the essential question that this board answers on a monthly basis for a variety of applications, and this one is no different from that standpoint. So,
If I can reply,
Yes.
I know what you're saying, Dean, and I get that, but I don't consider this to be, I've been sitting here for quite a while myself, and I would say this is kind of an unusual situation. And I think it's the board's responsibility to ask questions, because you hit it right on this head there when you said, is the business being run properly? And so because of this health situation, it's something that affects not just the neighborhood or the abutters, but potentially everybody in the city. So those are why I asked those questions.
and you're right, it is a unique situation, and that's why this application is before the board. I mean, there were options from a staff standpoint that we could have pursued, that we could have done an administrative decision, or we could have done minor site plan, or we could have done, and it was my decision that given the circumstances and the uniqueness of this, that it would go to the planning board for a site plan approval.
And if I may say, I agree with Councilor Cheney about the necessity for this, and I think it's a great thing to, I mean, it's obviously not just here. We probably use several more of these shelters around. But again, it's the nuts and bolts of it that I think we should be asking about.
Yes.
Dean, to respond, if I might, for just a moment. I think I have enough experience to say I can't think of a fire department I'd put more trust in than the Laconia Fire Department. That said, and this is certainly not an argumentative statement, that said, it doesn't satisfy me as far as the RSAs go. If the fire marshal put in a temporary order to override statute, I don't think it can be used this year and next year and the year after. Now, the chief and I differ on that. I'd like to hear from you. He's right, or my question is legitimate. I've been around RSAs long enough to know you can read part of them and they say what you want them to say. But when you read all of them, it turns out to be a different story. So I want to know statutorily we're okay. I really would like to see their rules and regulations on how they're going to require their friends to perform. And I am not opposed to this. I just want to be sure we're doing it right.
I believe that we're okay an RSA standpoint, but I have not done the level of research that I think you're referring to. Again, I have relied very heavily on the fire department to be the guiding light on this, and we're basing it off of the fire marshal's emergency temporary order. And I get what you're saying about forever.
Keyword temporary.
Right.
That's my concern.
Yeah. I fully understand.
Should this be tabled until next month so that we have time to do the research?
Well,
I hate to have a vote go
If the-
one way because
Speak up, chief.
If the question is strictly, and if whatever we come to, there may be 15 things that we want to look at tabling. If it's an RSA related issue, I have no problem with working with Dean and taking, I mean, I talked to the fire marshal multiple times about these because we've had them through the last couple of years. I got no issues digging deeper with the Department of Safety to make sure that this is all set RSA wise. And I mean, that's a one phone call to the commissioner's office and to the marshal to, to give you what you need. I'm comfortable with the answer. As you said, you acknowledge that, but I'll be glad to, and that can be a condition if we get to a point where that's the only holdup, that can be a condition of approval. Like we do, like we do with everything else.
Yeah, I'm prepared to agree under the condition that these things are researched and
A, we get a copy of their rules, and B, we research the statute, then I can vote in favor pending the receipt of those two pieces. And a
Absolutely.
phone call can do it. I don't have to wait till next month.
Yep, absolutely.
Do you have your list of rules? And I mean, unless it's like 30 things.
I
Good.
didn't.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
We can,
No. If you had it sitting right there in front of you in
I
that
know, I
pile, I
wish
would
I
just
did.
say, no, read them off, but that's okay. Thank you.
well, I have it on the computer. I do
Charlie?
have the
If,
details.
if this was tabled, would it be possible to allow them to temporarily go forward and then revisit it next month so that people weren't forced to be outside and they could start, is that possible to do? Well, wait a minute, no, so we're not saying you can't do it, we're just saying that they would come back and revisit, I'm just saying.
Well, I mean,
In other words, they could move on like it was approved tonight and then just come back again next month. Is
I
that
mean,
possible? Like a temporary.
To move it
approval?
to a vote.
When I made the decision to go this route as
Yeah.
opposed to say another route.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have not allowed them to operate up until this point for the reason that they don't have the approval. So I would say the answer would be no. Unequivocally, no, they could not operate without approval. I think we can satisfy the 2 or 3 concerns that we've had expressed and report back to you. If the vote is affirmative, then, you know,
Contingent.
we can get them going. I mean, quite frankly, if it's a table,
Oh, that's right. They still have to go through
That's
building
the-
code, don't they?
I mean, the winter will be over. I mean,
Yeah.
so
Can
it's
hope the
like,
winter's
you know,
over.
there has to
John?
be,
I
there's a
speak?
little bit of urgency to,
Right.
and there's a little bit of an urgency, but I don't want you to feel like that you should be rushed, because that's not what I'm saying.
John?
Bruce, so your concern about the RSA is merely about paying the people? Is that
No,
the
no,
only
no, I
thing that
think
you
they're-
have?
Yeah, I wished I didn't look this old. One of the problems with getting to my age is you forget things. I read this statute, believe it or not, years ago for other reasons.
Mhm.
And I have this nagging feeling in the back of my mind that there are some other requirements, you know, that staff has to be trained. You have to show a training program. I think the statute talks about paid staff, but I'm just not positive I'm right. If he can look at it and tell me, no, those aren't requirements, and you folks can work with him, we can get this done quickly.
Right,
I
and
mean, the chief, you know, he can get on the phone tomorrow and solve this problem.
There's crowd manager training, but I believe that only applies if it's a place of assembly. I'll have to check it because I don't think they'll meet the number. So I will look at that.
yeah, we do
Yeah,
not meet the
You do
numbers
not
for
meet that
assembly.
number. No.
Well, see, and those are some of the things
Mhm.
that I
'Cause
seem to
we are
remember.
having a training,
Good.
so, I mean, obviously, we wouldn't want our people,
You don't want to put your staff in harm's way.
right, they need to know what to do, what ifs, we're having a what if.
we're talking 31 sleeping souls, not up drinking, partying, you know, during
I
bed
think
sleeping.
so.
We run, 50 during the day without issue
Really?
awake. So running 30 at night sleeping.
Yep.
I don't see as a real big challenge.
I think Dean knows where I'm at, and I'm prepared to say contingent upon those things. If that's, and that's something I think can be done between the chief and the director quickly.
Want me to move to, okay. I am gonna open the public hearing. I am sure there are tons of you that would like to speak. If you find that what you want to say has been said. Please know that we are listening to each one of you, and just because it's almost 8 o'clock and I have to work in the morning, in the interest of time, if we do want to hear you, and just if there's lots of repetition, maybe you guys could all come up as like 2 or 3, and we know that you're saying the same thing. My only last question before I open up the hearing is on the fencing. Was the chain link, was that talked about with the abutting neighbor, or was that their
No, we're
choice?
under
or-
the understanding that there's a couple things we need to do since the purchase of Pittman's. The fence is one of them. I think we've got a year grace to put that into place, because right now the ground is not in the. right.
Oh, I was thinking of the type of fence. I wasn't sure
Oh, well,
if,
the city requirement is a chain link fence.
oh, okay. I wasn't
So we
sure
would
if that
do
was
at least
specified.
that, if not something with a little bit more privacy.
Oh,
So
okay,
at the minimum, it'll be a chain link fence.
got you.
Most,
Okay,
8-foot vinyl. We haven't come to that point yet.
right. Okay, great. So I'm going to open the public hearing at 8 PM. If there was anybody that would like to speak. And I'll get you right after.
My name's Donna Claremont. I live at 104 New Salem Street, and I feel that if nothing else, I would hope that you would listen to me. I have the sense that minds are made up, but I want things taken into consideration. You brought up the point about being it well run, and I've lived there. In fact, I've lived in that house since 1979. I've had many neighbors. I've seen them come and go. I've had a house burn beside me. I've had Snells live down the street. I've never had issues. Now I have had issues, and their idea is well taken. When they first came into the neighborhood, I introduced myself. I greeted them. I said, the only thing I hope is that the people that they are serving will be respectful of my property, be respectful of me. As late as today, I go out back to take my dog out back to do her business. And here's a sled out behind my shed that with debris and everything else, where it came from, I have no idea. Certainly wasn't my family, because they didn't come over. I've gone out back and I've had a gentleman, and thank God he had his back to me, urinating. And I say, what are you doing? And he says right out, and it's like, really? You have no regard for a female people's property? Nothing? Oh, I was angry that day. Trust me, I was down the police station and I was angry. I've had to call them. They say that it's, and I'm not saying that it's chaotic, but when they leave at the end of the day, I'm there. I see what goes on. I've had to call the police. I've had individuals out there ready to fist fight, man, woman. I've gone out there, I've had people walking through. I've gone out at night with my dog, and I've had individuals out there sitting at the picnic table drinking and carrying on. Would you want to live that way? Would you want that? So you can sit there and I'm going to tell you something. I sat in the back of the room here, and yes, there were 2 calls to my home in 2017. But I want to tell you something. My husband died December 1st, 2016. And I can tell you exactly the times that those calls were made. One was in May, and I was in Florida, and my grandson was at the house. And there was a family member that was a drug user, and he felt threatened. And the other time was on Christmas Eve of that same time. And it was the same individual that was making threats to the family. So I take offense that they wanted say that the police would call to my home? This isn't about my home. This is about them maintaining and doing their job. They want to serve these people, then do it right. They have rules. I have actually reached out to Miss Longvale and told her she was on vacation, that there was issues that were going on at her establishment, that she had no idea. She thanked me for letting her know. But they seem to want to overlook these things. They seem to want to forget what's going on. So the other issue I'd like to bring up, chain link fence, you seriously think that's a solution? When I have to look out my bay window and deal with this on a daily basis. Because they go home and there are still individuals there on a daily basis. So I asked you, I plead to you, take into consideration my feelings, what I have to deal with. Thank you.
Thank you.
Am I allowed to ask a question?
No.
I just want to say I'm really sorry for the problems that you've had, and no one feels they're good about it. I mean, nobody says that was a good thing. okay?
Sorry, ma'am, could you
But,
identify
Yeah,
yourself?
I'm sorry. My name's Kathleen Brown and I'm a resident of Ward 3. Right?
Messer Street,
I'm sorry,
Messer Street.
Messer Street. And therein leaves me someone that can talk about this, because we live right around on Messer Street, right around from the spa, and daily we pick up trash in our yard that comes from the spa every day. And it's not the homeless people, by the way. And also we have the wow trail that goes behind our house. And in better weather, not today, I confess, but all summer we walk the wow trail once every day and we pick up all the trash that's along the wow trail and throw it away. We've had people that were living in our backyard. We ministered to them. We helped them get to rehab. We became friends with them and the problem stopped. So that's just my answer to her. I'm really sorry for the problems you're having, but that's not solving anything either to stop this, because it is cold out there. And I don't know how many of you have been down to visit Isaiah 61, but we started volunteering down there a few months ago. And my life has been changed getting to know a lot of people that I never would have known before, that are wonderful people, that are not there because they want to be, but because of circumstances in their lives. So I would ask you, please help us to get them out of the cold at night. Because this morning it was 16 degrees when I had to leave for Concord, and all I could think of was just where they were and what they were doing.
Thank you.
I'm Shelley Tweedy. I volunteer. Would you want members of your family out in the cold? And what would Jesus do? Turn people away? I love Isaiah. I love that cafe. I just started working at the Christmas party. It's changed my life. These people are amazing. Have a heart. Think with your heart. Dave and Dawn are amazing in Laconia. It's what Laconia needs. These people are amazing. They're humans. What would Jesus do? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I am Shannon Ricciardi. And as of no respect to the neighbors, but there was a bar that was there before Isaiah's.
We can't hear you if you turn.
I'm
it off back
sorry.
there.
There was a bar that was there before Isaiah's ever was. So I apologize for whatever is going on now with us, but I'm sure the bar was much worse for you to deal with. Also, I was a resident at the Carey House, and COVID went through the Carey House, and there was no, we weren't separated or anything. They told us to sleep at one other end of the bed. 9 people got COVID there. My fiance and I did not. We were told that we couldn't go to Isaiah's because of COVID. We never bought it there and we never got it. And everybody else at the Carey House did, but there was no recall. They had someone sleep on the couch. That was their way of dealing with it. And just, it's also changed my life. I lost my home. I came from Romney, New Hampshire. I lost my job and my home. And I landed, I didn't even ever know about Isaiah's, and I landed there. And what it did was give me faith. And it gave me faith. I got a job and I got back on my feet, and I now have an apartment myself, and I volunteer with them. They're beautiful people, and addiction is a very hard thing. And I'm sure all of us have been affected by it, but these people are freezing and they need shelter.
Thank you.
My name is Alice Hurst. I volunteer, and I just would ask the lady who was complaining about her yard, who's to say they're people from Isaiah? It's an open backyard. I don't think anybody at Isaiah has a sled that would drop it off there. And if somebody went there to urinate, they might have come from somewhere else. I wouldn't blame it on our people.
I'm sorry to do this. I see the people go over to Isaiah. I know, I mean, there are gentlemen in here that have had to ask them to have, because they put their backpacks over underneath my oil tank, that they throw things, they've had bikes that they've put over. I've had to go and ask them. I've gone to them and said, can you tell them to please move their stuff off my property? I've tried to be decent with them about it, and it doesn't solve it. The one other thing I would say to you is, if I was to sell my house today, what do you think the value of it is? Do you think it's gone up? Personally, I think my value's gone down. But I'm not here to blame the people that frequent Isaiah. I'm not here pointing fingers, but those are the people that are in the neighborhood. I'm sorry.
Shelley. Jesus didn't think about money. He thought about people. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Alan Dolphin. I live on New Salem Street, and I own property on Water Street. If you're gonna pass this, at least make it a sobriety house. Make them earn a place to stay. How's that?
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Chris Whitten, and I'm also a volunteer. I volunteered at many other places. I have volunteered at Goodwill, which is a great place. I volunteered also at the Carey House, which is another thing. Not back when back then, we did not have the virus. We didn't have any pandemic or anything to be concerned of. But I know we did then, as their stipulations, as regiment as they were, things got by. Things got by. That's not the goal. We are a bunch of God-loving people who want the best for each other. Like it was said once before, what if it was your son, your daughter, your sister? Everybody's susceptible to addiction. Everybody's susceptible to homelessness. We're each one paycheck away. We may have bigger nest eggs, but we're one paycheck away from, we could be on the bench too. But for the grace of God, there go I, look at it. I know there's protocols and RSAs and this and that to go through, but there's also I mean, these people, our friends, not these people. I hate saying that. It's better said, our friends need help. Where there is help, there is hope. Where there is no help, there is no hope. We would like to have a community that had one goal, doing it the right manner, following the right codes and the right protocols. Yes, these things have to be in place. But how much more is it to help somebody? Give them a place to stay, give them some bearings in their head so they're not doing whatever they gotta do. I was once homeless 20 plus years ago. Once doing whatever you gotta do to survive, to put a Band-Aid on the situation, to numb the situation. But where there's a few days of warmth, there's more hope. There's like, hey, there might be some clarity in those few days or a couple months that we might have left. Some clarity of thought with the help that Isaiah provides, with the hospital, the clinic coming, and other people coming alongside. CAP comes alongside and helps out wherever they can. Health First comes alongside, helps out whenever they can. So with some clarity by sleeping in, not wondering where their next bed is, maybe a couple months, we can decrease our friends' homeless population. That is the goal. I think that's the goal for everybody. Where there's hope, there's health. When there's health, there's hope. I just, I see all these people and I understand that some people may be bothered by what they see out their windows and neighborhood and whatnot. I think no matter where you go, you can find something that you don't like. I just hope and pray that everybody comes alongside this with a decision of compassion. Thank you.
Thank you.
I will be brief. My name is Sharon Bilodeau. I don't live around here. I live in Plastow, New Hampshire. It takes me about an hour and 45 minutes to get to the Isaiah 61 Cafe. And all I do is I go up and I paint people's nails. Anybody that wants their nails done, because you know what, just to have a human touch is important. And there's not a lot of that. So I come up there just to paint nails. And sometimes I feel like I need the fellowship more than they do. But I wanted to say that just being inside that building, each time that I'm there, I come away with so much appreciation at seeing the hands and feet of Jesus at work within the walls of the Isaiah 61 Cafe. I've never seen anything like it. And I'm not sure if any of you have been in there or had a nice little tour, but it's well supported by the community from where I sit. And I just wanted to let you know it's worth it for me to drive an hour and 45 minutes. And sometimes it's longer. In the summertime, I can be an hour and 45 minutes at the toll booth. You all know what that's like. So I mean, I just wanted to say that that's how amazing that I think it is. And I've not met Dave personally, but love Don. I love all of these people and I love the hugging. I love all of it. So probably not that important, but I just wanted to let you know.
Thank you.
My name is Brad Brown, Kathy's husband. I live on Messer Street, right on the Wild Trail. So I have all the same issues Mrs. Claremont has. The difference is my wife and I are trying to make a difference. Charlie, you talked about who's supervising these people.
No, I asked if there were going to be people there on duty and if they were paid and professional. And my concern, Brad, was if volunteers, sometimes, I don't know these volunteers, they sound very
Yes, you do.
dedicated.
You know one.
But, okay, good, I know you. But if they were to happen to leave in the middle of the night, but that question was answered, and if there's not two people there, they have to shut it down. So the question was answered, that was my concern.
Yeah. Who's supervising these people now? Are you? Are you
Actually-
supervising?
Actually, the weather supervises them.
Exactly. That's what we're going to
I'm
do.
aware of the situation,
Okay.
Brad.
And we talked about who's supervising these people if these people fall asleep, these supervisors in charge. Well, we have a system. We, as volunteers, are with our friends all day long. They know us. We already have an intimate relationship with these people. We know them. They're our friends. We call them our friends. They love and respect us. I've been volunteering there for almost a year. These people care about me. They're never going to beat me up in the middle of the night. They're going to listen to me. We don't want to be paid. I would love to give Isaiah $61 million if I had it. I can't do it, but guess what I can do? I can make a difference. I can stay up all night long, 1 or 2 nights a week. I'm the guy downtown that can be called when someone doesn't show up. There's many of us here.
That's important to know.
It's good to know. We're trained because we're with them all day long anyway. The COVID issue, we have 27 people that came in here tonight. We weren't tested.
Yeah, but I'm not sleeping next to them either.
You can't get much closer than this.
Yes, you can.
We weren't tested. So it's really just let Isaiah do what it's trying to do best. We're not perfect. We're going to make mistakes, but we're making a difference in Laconia because we're solving problems that so far this city has not figured out how to solve. And I'm still going to have people walk in front of my house at night. You lived across the street from me. You saw it. It's not all Isaiah 61 people. So it's really a no-brainer. Let Isaiah 61 do what we're trying to do to make a difference. We care.
I just want to ask him a question, Irving. So Brad, this is something I wasn't clear on, and I apologize to everybody around this table if I missed this. Maybe it was in the presentation here, but it sounds like the majority of the people here with the red sweatshirts on are there during the day. But the way the system is now, they have to leave at night because they can't stay there at night. Is that what I'm?
It closes down at 2:30 simply because we have not been approved for any more.
Okay, so again, my question is that most of the people we're talking about staying there at night are the very same people that are there during the day?
I think we're going to have, we're going to have different people. We have people, our friends who have come out of drug addiction and alcoholism and now are very valuable with us because my wife and I, we're not experts on the subject, but we're going to have 2 people that came out of the system helping us.
Okay, but I'm still, the majority of the people there at night are the same people you're dealing with during the day for the most part. That's what, so they're not necessarily total strangers coming off the street. Okay,
exactly.
That's what I'm trying to clarify.
We're going to take care of our own. The ones that come in during the day who use our services, who have a relationship with us, we just want to extend that to them at night.
Okay. That's good to know. Thank you.
They'll have first sign up kids.
I know you have to work, so I'll make it quick.
Bless you.
Oh, Joan Mullen, nice to meet all of you. We drive, oh, can I just go back? We met this wonderful group over the summer. And, oh, sorry.
Where are you from?
Most people don't tell me that. We're actually from Sanbornville, New Hampshire, and we drive here because, well, there's plenty of need, as you know, the Rochester area and all that, but we got led here. I don't believe there's accidents, okay? So in the summer, we were going to Rotary Park. How we started is what a beautiful park. And we attended a wedding there. And it was just lovely. So my husband and I said we wanted to go there and have a roast beef sandwich one day. And we were sitting there and all of a sudden we saw these wonderful people, but it was different. And I said, wow, like I didn't know, right? So each Monday we'd go back and we'd have pizza with them. And we built these unbelievable friendships. And then about 3 months in, we watched a woman, I don't want to get emotional on you guys. We watched a woman, actually 67, no hope, tough personality, hard to love. She had to have a stroke before she could get help. The next time we saw her, because we only know one first names, she was at the Isaiah house because she was on the park bench. And when we left her with her pizza, she had a stroke and nobody saw her for a while. Now, let me tell you, I come from a family of police officers as well. Toughest job, wouldn't want it, my brother, okay? They saw her, they picked her up, they got her help. If they weren't here, where would she have gone? When I saw her and she just burst out crying at the Isaiah house, paralyzed from the waist down, I mean, from one side down, they helped her. See, and I think this is what's being lost in this is, yes, we're all human. And yes, we want to do what Jesus does. And this is all very important, but this isn't a handout. There's no criteria as in COVID. I get that, but there's no criteria at all because we all come from so many different stories. That woman that was 67, she had a story. She was not homeless for a long time. She had some really bad things happen and found herself alone. And she looked at me and she said, I never thought that I would see myself at this age sitting on this bench. Okay, up to them. If it wasn't for these, and I'm not just, these guys are phenomenal, but the whole support system is what sells this place. It's not a handout. You don't come in feeling like you've lost something. You come in with a welcome. It doesn't matter what walk of life. I watched that Christmas. There was a little girl come in and they didn't expect her and she didn't have a gift. One of the guests got together and pitched their money in and went to Salvation Army and bought her a doll. And this little girl ran around, and that was up to, I don't know how many people, but we were feeding so many. She ran around with this ballerina. And at the end of it, from what I understand now, I don't ask questions. They're living in a motel. Her dad's a phenomenal guy, loves on her. He came up to me at the end and said, here's $20. He said, please take it. You guys do so much for people. And I said, please wait, I want to get the owner. You have to talk to him because those are the things. That little girl's never going to ever forget that. And $20, I don't know his situation, but I imagine it was quite a bit. They don't hand out. You're not getting a handout, you're getting a leg up. These people give these people the leg up. You've heard several. And that's why my husband and I, we get up in the morning and go, what do you want to do? We're newly retired. I want to go there. He wants to go there because you see the improvement, not to mention the love of the Lord. And I will bring that up because that's what it's all about. When they walk in there, they're loved on. It's not what you did or what you will do or even where you, that's what they're saying right here is that some of these people are struggling. Doesn't mean they won't overcome it. But if they're accepted, they're not saying, come on in and have a beer, not like Pittman's was, I guess. You know, they're saying, come in, we'll take you as you are, just the way we're supposed to, and we'll help you go further. So thanks for your time. And again, I'm sorry you have to work tomorrow. I'm newly retired. Really, guys, if you have the opportunity, they want to work with you. And it sounds like all you guys love on your city. I love Sanbornville, and if I didn't love them so much, I'd move here. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna make it quick and just throw it out there to you, throw it out there to you, throw it out to everybody. This day and age, I went into a new
Sorry,
town,
who are you?
Robert Pappin.
Thanks.
I just, my 5th week into town. I know Charlie, he helps me with my music stuff. Anyways, this lady, how many years have you been living at your house?
How many years?
Yes.
42 years.
Have you ever heard the term variety is the spice of life?
Pat, you gotta face us. We can't hear what you're saying.
Have you ever heard variety is the spice of life? Okay, you're worried about someone going to the bathroom next door to your property. You're worried about a cart full of stuff next to your property. I get that. So this modern age, we should start a GoFundMe, okay? And we're gonna go across the country with it, this situation. Other people are gonna help us on the GoFundMe. We're gonna have so much money, or we're gonna buy that house. We're gonna buy that house so she doesn't have to look at carts. She can go buy an island. We're gonna put money at the door saying,
Okay.
no winner, take the money. Well, There's no
Thank you.
problem with that. That's the way the world is today. Go fund me. And people are gonna care about these people, what they're doing. And we're gonna go to her door and say, a price is not gonna refuse. Go buy your own Allen. You won't have any costs if people go into the bathroom.
Thank you.
Buy some suntan.
Any of the takers?
Jessica Berry, Keyser Court. I grew up in this town, moved back 2.5 years ago. Everybody know this town? Keyser Court has never had a good name. I can vouch that that little street with 5 houses at max on each side has had more calls to the police station for homeless people, drug overdoses, B&Es, wanderers in the yards that we don't know who they are because the spotlight can't go back a quarter acre. Not a single one of those people have I ever seen in Isaiah 61 at all. The ones that I have seen in Isaiah 61, I either grew up with Holy Trinity, Woodland Heights, through Laconia High. And we rekindled it like it was just yesterday. We saw each other. The ones that we had problems with in the neighborhood and at Bartlett Beach will not set foot at Isaiah 61 because they say everybody judges there. Somebody that wasn't homeless and needed just a little bit of help coming out of a domestic violence relationship, Isaiah is the only one with an open door. The overdoses I've seen in my town. People in Isaiah 61 know who they are, but we don't know them. They're just residents of the city that everybody turns a blind eye to. Isaiah 61, I keep hearing it referred to as a business. As far as I know, and please correct me if I'm wrong, it's not a business per se. It's a 501(c)(3). It's volunteers. It's not for profit. They're doing this because that's a goal. It's a mountain they want to climb for the love of the people. It's a community. It's motivation, positivity. Some need help in putting together a resume. There's nowhere in this city since, I can't date myself, but 76, when my parents moved here from Massachusetts, and I grew up in, there's nowhere unless you go to the unemployment office, which has very limited hours, I've learned, to get assistance in putting together a resume or to be comfortable enough to walk in and be like, oh, I just lost my house, I'm being evicted. I don't know what to do, where to go, where to turn. If it's not those of us that live in the community and are very thankful for even just the Wi-Fi, because your data ran out on your phone, but you're waiting on that call for your interview or the second interview or the appointment time and location to go take your drug testing or whatever it is for that next step of a job. There's not many areas in Laconia anymore that you can stop, sit, not have a password and not be judged in order to make that next step to reach your goals, to better your life. Isaiah is open now. It's not a homeless shelter. It isn't a respite. It's the only place I know the city of Laconia has had in my lifetime. It's 100% for the better of the city. And as far as the COVID, because I'm not going to beat on it because it is a hit or miss topic. Yes, businesses do test. They only test the employees that are paid. Carey House is paid. Belknap House is paid. They aren't tested when they walk in. We had a prior resident of Carey House vouch that this situation happened and they did not take the CDC required steps to quarantine everyone in the house. They're still allowed outside and off the property. So if you go into Dunkin' Donuts before your early morning
and you order a coffee, just per se, you order a coffee. Is everybody else inside the restaurant as a customer tested? Is their temperature checked when they walk in the door? Each and every one of us are human. We make our own choices and we're responsible for our own actions. It's a responsibility we take as adults and citizens of this community that Isaiah has gone above and beyond to help anybody and everybody. All you have to do is ask. All you have to do there. You're not judged. You don't have to meet an income bracket. You don't have to be below this. Isaiah is the only thing Laconia has. Be thankful. They are 501(c), not a business, but they go above and beyond those that are paid in this city as state employees because it's a state-funded homeless shelter. Just my opinion is,
It's state funded?
no, not, I'm saying others in this city
Okay.
are state funded because it is a state facility or state facility, but state's funds. Isaiah's already saying city code is a chain link fence. They're not saying that's the only thing they're going to do. They've already done the research. As a citizen of about 40 years now of Laconia, I'm thankful to see that somebody takes a plate and does not worry about that third strike because it's not a thought in their head. It's a better of this city, to better our community and to educate and give the resources, the knowledge, the ability for everybody to improve and reach their goals, to better their lives. And essentially betters this city and its reputation. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, it is 8:35.
This will take 1 minute.
About 10 seconds.
One
You
minute.
have already
Um,
spoken.
Oh, okay.
Okay, anybody who has not spoken? Okay, I would like to end the public hearing at 8:36 so that,
I'm just curious, were there any emails or other stuff that we don't have here that it's come in? Okay, thank you.
and no one on Zoom, right? Okay. I would like to close the public hearing at 8:36 and hear from the staff.
Well, they have been to the ZBA for their special exception, which is required for this type of activity in this zone. Which was granted with the condition that the ZBA recommends that the fence be installed as we have discussed. All of the other requirements have been met. We are working with fire department on the nitty gritty details, but other than the couple of issues that have been raised that we can follow up with you very quickly, I think that we're ready to put this into your hands.
Okay, any questions for staff?
I have a question, and I'm looking for that. Did I take it from you, that diagram? Did you take it back?
Which
With
one?
with a map on it? The chain link fence. On this? Okay, is it the black? Is it what's outlined in black?
No, no. It is the common property line between 100 and 104 New Salem. And then wrapping around the backyard of 104 Salem.
So it wraps around where the red is or the
Where the
black?
red is, yes.
The red is.
Yep,
And that's right on their property line,
yes,
but on the other side, it's open.
correct.
And the property owner was okay with that.
Concern was for that property owner, so that will take care of that property owner.
Okay, but so the property owner is okay with that, having that fence is what I'm asking.
The fence was requested at,
Requested by them.
yeah,
Okay. But the,
At the ZBA meeting, the fence was
Okay,
requested.
so the wild trail's back over where the railroad tracks are. It's not close to that property line at all. There's a big parking lot right there. And the wild trail's back over by the railroad tracks, right?
Yes.
Because I thought maybe when they were talking about sleds and trash and stuff, it was coming from maybe from the wild trail. Okay,
I don't
thank
know.
you.
This chain link fence, is this 4 foot, 10 foot? Is there any specs on this?
I think she wants privacy fence instead of chain link.
Exactly, a solid,
But how tall?
Whatever she
6.
desires.
Well,
to make a visual barrier.
We were looking at it from the standpoint of as a separation means to keep people from wandering from one property to the other. From that standpoint, I think a 4-foot chain link fence accomplishes that. If the desire is to go beyond that in terms of more privacy or a larger barrier, then that's certainly within your purview. We do have a 6-foot height under code, and in the first, I'm not sure how many feet from the front property line. I think in that zone, it's probably 5. First 5 feet, it can't exceed 4 feet. So we'd have like one section of 4 feet, and then you could have taller beyond that.
Is that a map you've got?
And when you say, when Mike says privacy fence, so that's a fence you can't see through?
Could be a chain link fence that has like the slats in it, or that kind of a thing, or it could be a solid stockade fence of some kind, whether it's wood or whether it's vinyl or, yeah.
And who would be responsible for the maintenance of that?
It would be put up at the cost of Isaiah 61, and they would be responsible for the maintenance of that fence. It would be on their property.
So
On
can
the
we
line, I'm not
ask,
sure, but it would be on
If
their
somebody
property.
was to tear down the slats or they fall down or whatever, they would be responsible to put that back up.
Yes.
Brett, did you have a question?
yes, before we start debating this whole fence thing, why don't we ask the abutter, Miss Claremont, if she thinks that that might alleviate some of the problems? Otherwise, we're just wasting our breath.
I would agree. I wanted to ask her that.
She's actually speaking to Rob right now.
I mean, because the way I look at it, a 4-foot chain link fence might keep certain individuals from coming into your yard. But personally, if we're talking about people relieving themselves, I don't often see someone relieving themselves with their back turned to a chain link fence. Normally, they're facing the chain link fence, which would be facing her yard. So let's get her input if maybe that would help the situation of privacy fit.
We can have her do that. Thank you for coming up.
Thank you.
Did you hear we have a board member on Zoom, and
Yes.
he was wondering how you felt about the height of the fence, the type of fence, that could maybe alleviate some of the problems.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity because no one has spoken to me about the type of fence. It was until I read the paper today that it mentioned a chain link fence. And so I appreciate this opportunity. I value my privacy. And so I would appreciate a fence that is solid, that is 6 feet, so that I have my privacy. So that
Okay.
I can go out into my yard and not feel that I have to be exposed to something that I don't want to be.
Okay, so you're not going to feel like you're in a box.
No.
Okay.
No, thank you.
So she's mentioning 6-foot fence, which I totally understand. But I hear something that it couldn't be 6 feet the whole.
I think
way
it has
around?
to start at
Out at the
4.
road, you'd have to so many, I think it's 20 feet from the road.
It's
You
the
have
front,
4
it's the
foot.
front setback, and
Because we had a
I think
guy
it's
up-
it's 5 feet in that area,
It's
so.
in the UC district and the setback would be 5 feet. So
Okay.
The first 5 foot could only a maximum of 4 feet.
And then it
After
would,
that 5 feet, could go up to a 6 foot maximum.
Which if you looked at my property on that abutting, there's trees. There's a group of
This is you, right?
trees that are right there.
are they on your
So-
property?
They're ironically, part of them are on their property. The majority is on my property.
So with the fence going there,
So the
would they have
fence,
to remove some of those trees?
no,
Okay.
We'll work around it.
All right, thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff?
Can I offer an amendment to the application?
And if you
Regarding
could
the
drag it out
fencing?
until Bruce gets
Bruce
back,
is
that
on his
would
way
be
Sure,
great.
sure,
Back.
yeah.
Oh.
The current application under item 3, recommended conditions. Item 3D specifies a chain link fence. I would like to offer an amendment to specify that that fence be a 6-foot vinyl privacy fence that would meet city code with the 5-foot setback that only allows for a 4-foot height. To follow along the same lines as was specified in the original application.
What is the purpose of the setback for 4 feet?
Probably visibility. for
Visibility.
traffic.
Visibility for who?
Sightline, so you can see over it.
Like we're back out
Traffic,
of the yard.
pedestrians backing out of your driveway,
Okay,
their driveway is there too, so they'll have service vehicles, et cetera.
I see. Okay, thank you.
And on certain areas, it's only 30 inches. So I'm just saying,
In
this
certain areas,
particular,
it's what?
certain areas, it's 30 inches.
I'm hoping my amendment would satisfy the abutters' concerns. I would certainly entertain a second.
Actually, now that we've heard the staff report, it is discussion among board members, correct? Before we do a motion.
I was just offering an
I
amendment, but I
know,
guess that's a
thank you.
motion. I guess
No.
that's a motion too.
Any discussion before I ask for a motion?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry I have to do this. One young lady came up twice saying, what would Jesus do? Jesus would tell your family to get a job. Laconia doesn't have the infrastructure to have 30 homeless people that are drug addicts and alcoholics released into the community daily. My wife owns an office building right next door, rents an office right next door, and we're trying to have lunch out in the patio, the private patio there. And they're all drunks down in the back, drinking and whooping it up one day. I talked to people that are afraid to go to the library because of the crew that hangs out there. Attracting more homeless people to Laconia just increases the degradation of the city. We're trying to improve the city, spending millions on the Colonial Theater, other projects in town. And we're just festering more drug addiction, alcoholism by allowing them to stay in a place. One gentleman, like Alan, I didn't get his last name, said, at least make it a sober house. Don't let them come in all drunk and high and release them out the next morning to go out and buy their drugs and their alcohol. Get a job. Get your own house to live in. There's always a need for shelter. I understand that. And I don't want people to go out in sub-zero weather and die. But if you let them stay there under these conditions, they're never going to get better. They're just going to stay there until they die.
I'll second that.
I'm sure there's hope and some people succeed. And God bless you. And God bless Dawn and Don for helping you. But you have to help yourself too.
You have to have people that want to help and will help.
And I cannot approve. I'm sorry, I can't vote to approve that this is a good thing for Laconia.
A drug addict is God's child.
That's true.
I'm not gonna be quiet.
I'm sorry, the public hearing has been closed.
I'm still wrestling.
Any other discussion?
I'm gonna wait for the motion.
Question, Dean. So if we put the stipulation in with a 6-foot high fence, solid vinyl fence, will that need to be installed now?
Practically speaking, that's not going to happen now, but you know.
Why not?
Weather.
I just came off a job today. They're
Yeah,
putting vinyl, putting chain link fence in as we speak, or yet they did today.
Yeah. And from a ground standpoint, I'm sure that it's doable. From a getting someone to do it, everybody's got a long wait list. I see what else is going on in the community in terms of all the other contractors, and it's practically speaking, it's not going to happen immediately, but we certainly would work with the applicant and try to get it done as soon as we could.
Five C needs to, there needs to be a 5C now that I think it's probably the appropriate place to put that. Planning director and the fire chief will do a RSA review of, just as a and report back out as a staff report.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So what did we decide with this whole RSA? Are we talking about giving a conditional approval to start immediate operations with the ability to withdraw later if the RSA, if there's a problem with the RSAs? Or what are we actually talking about doing here if we still have that RSA review hanging out there? I would think to give them approval to start, if we still have any doubt about the RSA compliance, that would just open up a legal doorway.
I mean, my opinion, I'm comfortable with what it says. I'm comfortable. I will do that though, because we talked about it, but I'm comfortable with what the verbiage in the RSA.
Yeah, I would echo that. I don't believe we're going to find anything in this review, but we're more than happy to do it.
So we're talking about approving it.
The first place to do this, so.
I mean, yeah, in a practical speaking, if need be, then just as if there are issues, just as there would be for any other site plan approval, this board approves, that you could take steps to revoke the site plan approval. I don't anticipate that being necessary, but that's something that is available to this board.
Okay, so we are talking about approving it with an RSA review, and if something comes up, then revoking it.
That's what it comes to, yes.
Thank you.
Now, the condition under the ZBA, we got the fencing request, the possibility of a cap on the number of incidents or emergency responses allowed per year.
That was a thought. I don't know how we would do that, and I certainly don't know how we parse out an emergency response because it's a medical response versus a disturbance type of response. And if it's something that's occurring at an adjacent property, I don't know how we can definitively attribute it to this operation. I mean, I know what the suspicions are, I understand that, but, you know, I don't know that we can do that. You know, we did check the call log at the police department. There were a number of calls from the general neighborhood, but are they higher than they are, say, in other parts of the downtown district? I don't know one way or the other, but, you know, I think you would find that I mean, the library was mentioned. The library certainly has a very high number of calls for a whole bunch of things. Some of them are disturbances and unruly behavior and medical and et cetera, but some of them are not, you know, so, you know, I don't know how we would parse that out, you know. It was a thought that they had, but I don't know how we would define a number and then kind of figure out which ones are, you know, which ones go toward the count and which ones don't, I guess is the way to put it.
If people are nervous, is it possible to do a temporary so that it's not, once we vote on this, it's permanent forever? Is it possible to just do a year trial?
You're asking, I'm sorry, but you're asking us to put in a fire alarm system and much upfront costs. This is all in or all out? I'm sorry.
No, that's a good point.
I would say no.
Right.
I know
yeah.
we kind of did that with Tower Hill and it worked. I will tell you, in my offline conversations with our legal team, they were not so much in favor.
Okay.
They weren't happy.
Okay, any other discussion?
I'm gonna make a motion that we approve PO 2021-0141 SP for 100 New Salem Street.
If,
Oh, with the amendments that were put in 5C, what was where was the other number?
3D, fencing.
3D and 5C, which is the fence and the RSA review.
Can I also suggest that 3A with operating procedures to be provided to planning department to include resident rules and training procedures or training documents, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. I'd be interested to have that as part of this application. 3A.
Yeah, no, I was just looking at the
so that we have the rules for residents and the training procedures as part of the application as well, Chief.
which is actually, yeah, it's actually all required in their fire document anyhow, but we can, you know, we certainly have that.
Specify.
So I would just continue my motion then to include, you know, we can call it 3A1. That will get copies of their training plans and rules and regulations.
And did you include 5C as well?
Yep.
The RSA review?
Yes.
I'm looking for a second.
Second.
I figured it would be you. Thank you. Roll call for approval.
No, I'd
We
like to have some
already
discussion,
discussed.
please.
What?
Discussion on the motion.
Oh,
We're shooting for 10 o'clock.
I would like to make a statement here. The first thing I want to make is I am shocked that we had one or two people, abutters, that came in to voice their opposition. And I can't speak for everybody else at this table, But I have been hearing from people all week, especially after newspaper, oh, this is terrible, you can't do this, this is gonna be bad for the city, except, well, kind of like what Mike was saying. But they're not here. They're not here. And this is a problem that we spoke about earlier today at another board meeting, where people all have these complaints that I hear about, but they don't come to the meetings, maybe just to even voice their concerns to the applicants. And I think those people are guilty of something, I just don't know what, but they are. And so be it. I agree, excuse me, I agree with what Mike said. I totally understand where he's coming from. But in my mind, it's not quite as simple as that. I think this is not just a city of Laconia problem. I think it's a county problem. I think it's a state problem. And I have some questions, but I trust Brad and some other people I know here. I don't know the owners, but I take Brad for his word when he says that things are going to be good there. But at the same time, I think, and I look at staff for this, or look at Dean for this, that if things go awry there quickly, there'll be something done about that, to bring people back in and say, hey, this isn't working. And I certainly hope that the fence helps the abutter, but I think the staff of Isaiah has to do their diligence to make sure, rather they're the residents or people walking by that are causing the problems, to help her out, because it's no fun to have problems in your own home. I don't think it's right. And I think that I think all the residents there can do their diligence too, to watch out for their fellow members, if that's where the issues are coming from, to make sure people are polite and treating the neighbors with respect. Because I'm going to vote yes for this, but for the reasons I just said, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done here. And I know what it's like to be cold. It's no fun. And it is important. And I know the fire chief, I can just tell by his conversation tonight that he's very concerned about the welfare of the citizens of Laconia. So that's what I wanted to say, Madam Chair. I
Thank you.
appreciate that. Thank
It's well said. Any other discussion?
Just
of
one
motion?
thing, Chair, Madam Chair,
Scott.
thank you. I too heard a lot of chatter around town about this particular application. Most of it was in opposition. And again, too, I'm surprised we had just a couple of folks show up in opposition. And I do hope that our amendments that have been added to the application will satisfy the abutters' concerns. I think the board has done a good job in trying to address those. Thank you.
Thank you. Are we ready for a roll call?
So roll call for motion to approve with the amendments. Kirk Biotti,
Yes.
Riley St. Clair,
Yes.
Bruce Janey,
No.
Knew it was good.
Richard McNeil,
Yes.
Brett Bellevue,
Yes.
Michael Delavicia,
No.
Scott McWilliam,
Yes.
Stacy Susie.
Yes.
The vote is
7-2.
6-2.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We do have another applicant right after. And if we could take a 5-minute break.
Now you.
She wanted to see you.
I know I went outside of it. You guys are awesome. Not just because
That's
of
good.
this was a lot. You guys are awesome.
Thank you for coming.
God bless you.
Familiar, what do we have?
Yeah, they are.
I don't have it in my packet, do I?
Yeah.
Number 11.
That's the neighbor behind me.
New business? Oh, yeah, the, that's the boat storage building. Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's boat storage building.
Next time I see her. It wasn't me. I know it was.
For a while, yeah.
You want to stir the pot now, hang on.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe it looks
Throw a
different.
few grenades.
Don't want to pull any permits, so. Yeah,
I could just.
Well.
Kick our chairman.
For leaving you in this situation.
Yep.
At least I wasn't shaking as bad. This is why I failed in theater.
I didn't bitch about him until now, but hang on.
Is a review of the exterior walls of the.
We're waiting if you want. So how is life? in the
Pass them
neighborhood?
around, okay.
I had an awful year physically.
Yeah.
And so I've been getting out of having to shovel shit.
Okay,
Down
yeah.
to 1 or 2 times a week.
You probably got enough things written down on your notebook for tonight. I was gonna say you should be.
March, April, I was
2,000 words or less. Come on.
I have what's called CLL, chronic lymphocytic. This is a very slow. Doctor said something else is going to take.
You'll die of something else.
Yeah.
But because of it,
Concord does though. I did some research on New Year's Day.
Is that they want to do it?
Oh,
Take it?
Concord has
They
a
wanted to
great
take it.
system.
Because I've had 3 biopsies.
Yeah, they're just about
So I
done.
was like,
They're pretty close. Yeah.
then comes down-
Charlie Roth,
Yeah,
my
me too.
company's been dealing with all that, but they're pretty
Imagine
close.
being on the Wild
I'll
Trail.
make it.
yeah, well, mine didn't go that way.
We're just,
So they said,
around to have a quick
because of the
Dude,
CLL,
dude,
you
I-
can't have.
Oh, yeah,
No,
these
I just
weren't.
Gotta go for radiation.
Soften it up, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it won't be open.
Imagine the shingles.
In my case, it was a radiation treatment, 5 days a week. for
That was
8
one of the
hours.
things that the reps-
Oh, geez.
If it was gonna become a permanent shelter.
Yeah.
Year round.
But on top of that, I have to go.
This is just one of the, that was one of the areas that have allowed us to, I don't wanna use the word worry, but allow us to adjust.
100,000.
That it wouldn't be.
Becoming your wife?
Yeah. I was sitting there, she said, "You should know the son of a bitch, you know, I put up with it."
I know, Z.
So anyways, I got there.
Weir's Beach.
April or May, I grew.
You can see these. Or
Are you what do you, Dina,
So
are we still being recorded?
when they develop.
Yes, you are.
And then I got COVID. Both shots, still got COVID. So I mean, it's been one of the two.
Passionate group.
The only good that comes out of it.
Great.
The only good that.
Yeah,
comes
with
out
that
of
many
it is
people, I didn't know what the
too
split
sick
was
to go
going
up
to
and
be,
shovel
you know,
brush.
and obviously
So
it
you
was
got
a
good.
95.5
Yeah.
split, you know, I was a little
I think those are passing around.
Yeah.
Okay, do we,
Are we just gonna
oh,
share
we're
one
just
again?
missing Charlie.
Oh, we can do that, yeah. These two guys can share one and you and I can share one. Are we back on this again?
We have another smaller size set if you guys would like that as well. If you need extra
Yeah.
copies.
I'd like you to go out and find a crowd of people to come in and support. Never mind.
Matching sweatshirts.
Yeah.
That's the same thing.
It is, there's extras.
Oh, okay, so it's a whole set, yeah.
Okay, I think we have everybody.
I don't want to pay for your ink budget.
Welcome.
Hey, it's great to see you
Well,
guys.
there's
And hopefully this will nip this up here and I'll move briskly
I
because.
hope you brought me shingles
Yeah, no shingles.
and not
on
the
this.
disease.
One
Yeah.
shingles?
I had my shot.
Me too, it hurt.
Michael McEwen from Dennis Myers, the Architects, thank you so much for your time. This is Northwater Marine. We've had many a meeting and many an approval, thankfully. We're very appreciative of the progress in your time, and I'll try to keep it short, because I too am up early in the morning. So I was planning to not review the master plan, if that's acceptable, because
That's fine.
that's a conditionally approved project, and we're just looking at the exterior material, so we'll focus on that. I would just want to start with a brief overview of where we left off. These were the elevations of the previously submitted master plan. There's a series of 3D views from across Channel Lane. And then this was the view that we had left you with previously. Our comments that we had heard was it was a bit too vertical, a bit too commercial. It needed a bit of look at the material choice. The striping made it look much like a metal building, and the emphasis was thought to be on tighter materials. Clapboards was mentioned, other residential style materials were mentioned, and a further refinement of the design was desired. There was quite a bit of comment about whether or not the exterior design fit in with the channel and Pogus and the weirs. And we have looked at that quite deliberately. There is a limitation. I will start by saying there is a limitation on the siding of this building, which I had addressed in the past meeting, that doesn't make wood materials on the exterior conducive to the building type. And that's a derivative of the steel structure and where it's placed and how it's used to rack the boats. And also the height of the building and the wind loads that are on the sides of the building. And that's why pretty much wherever you go, you will see a metal clad boat rack building. But what we've tried to do is really listen to those thoughts and investigate the design of the facades further so that we could give it a better scale and a little bit more materiality to how the buildings will be clad, I guess is the best way to put it. This is the revised proposed design, and please don't, the colors are the same because obviously they're the corporate colors of Northwater. But what I want to draw your attention to, and I will pass out something that has an installed version of what we're looking for. But what we've done is we had bits of color up at the top of the building, and we felt that that was competing with what we wanted to have for a smaller scale of the buildings. What we've done is divided the coloration of the materials by an accent band, which you'll see represented in a built form of what that would look like, passed around here in a minute. What's hard to see on these elevations, which I'll show you in another in a minute in another print, is this is a very tight patterned. It looks just like out right behind Alex's foot. The blue here is a tight patterned rhythm, which from the water is going to feel like a clabbered style 8-inch profile. So we had a very wide 3-foot profile to these, and we've looked at how we can place the materials that will give you the feel from the water of a siding material that would emulate a residential neighborhood, perhaps. And at the top, we've gone with a little bit of a more deliberate, wider pattern, which is represented in this white here, because what you'll see in this image is it really just blends in with the surroundings, which is really nice. We had wanted the tops of these buildings to kind of disappear or just blend in with their surroundings. And that's why we focused the color and the patterning here below this accent band. So in this image here, you can see what that would look like from the bridge. And then even closer, you can see here that it's a tighter rhythm and it basically emulates clabbered siding. And what I'll do at this time is I'll pass around an image of the 2 siding materials installed. Pay no attention to the brise-soleils and the other roof treatments. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. That, it goes the other way, right?
Yes.
It would not be going up and down. It would be going sideways.
Vertical.
So for the white, it runs vertically,
Yeah.
right in this area. It's just problematic for us to try to turn that just because it's thin. But this is the top of the building.
Thank you.
Right in this area. And then the blue is shown as it's shown right there. So it would have very strong lines in an 8 or 9-inch rhythm.
Oh, so that does go that way.
The blue, yes.
Okay.
So you can see if you look at this image, I believe that
Yeah.
Mr. DeVecchia has the bottom portions, the orange portions are that blue represented right there.
Is the blue the same as the green in this depiction?
Yes, it would be the green insets, because in that depiction, the green and the orange are the same material.
See that?
So you'll be sheathing this horizontally rather than in vertical sheets on a normal steel building.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. And it's not easy to do that.
That's correct.
Because in all of these buildings,
No
they want that siding to be vertical. And that's why we showed it that way in the original master plan. But
That looks
we
great.
understand that, something this wide and big sheets isn't really going to give you a nice, pretty feel on the building. What you can see when you look at this image, and I apologize, I only had one of this prepared to bring. It gives you a completely different feel to the building. It brings scale to it. It gives you a
So
nice,
we're looking at the green.
the green and the orange, the base of the building.
Want to look again?
No,
No,
that's
go ahead.
okay. I thought it was yellow.
Okay, yellow. And I would note that in that image, the white at the top is exactly the same material that we're looking to do at the top of our building. And when you look at that image, you can see just how it blends because it's a bigger pattern.
The depiction, it looks a lot like shingles.
Yeah.
It looks like shingles in the depiction. I'm not getting the same feel from the example that Alex is
I think it's
holding
the
up.
bright blue.
Which portion?
Blue is, okay, help me out. What,
So the
green
blue-
that, what's depicted in green there? What,
blue.
the blue?
Yes. And I will say that we're not 100% locked in on the color. So please don't, take that for gospel. We know that our corporate standard is blue, gray with a white. And that's very important to North Water, but we're still finessing the color. So the white at the top that you see there is exactly this material that Bob's holding. I have 2 vans.
It's a good thing you brought help.
Yeah.
Two homeless people you picked up on.
And the blue is the green and the yellow, so to say.
Probably better.
It just looks so much different in the picture.
Yeah.
And that's,
Not seeing the
I will say,
waviness.
be cautioned. That's
Not seeing the corrugation.
What's the caution?
So this is why I brought the image, because that's from a relative distance to the water. It's tough to see this in this piece that's 12 inches or 9 inches tall by 3 foot wide. When you see it on the building, it does look very different. It's just not up, the whole wall's
Oh,
not done
got you. But your buildings would look like it was all layered,
like that.
right?
Yes.
Yeah, that.
Yeah.
That
And that's-
looks like
and honestly,
shingles.
That's why we chose these materials, is because we found the ones best that we thought would suit the comments that we heard. So, this is the final design. And we just wanted to show a before and after, you know, and I'll just say, in terms of color, in terms of the design of the buildings, you know, we've been through how the master plan came to be. We're just really looking to be very deliberate to create a design that's timeless, that's scaled with what we can manage in terms of the heights of the building, to draw your emphasis where it wants to be, and to have as human scale and clean a design as we can.
Now, is Brett able to see that picture?
I was earlier, but then we panned over so I could see the panel sections. Can we pan back to the left so I can see the picture?
Because we
Not
have
that
a,
big.
we have a picture of a building with that type of material on it. Which is really different from what the examples are.
How was that, Brett? That's as far as I can.
No, that looks good. I mean, I get what they're saying from the samples that they held up. And I know rendering with Revit and everything else, so I can picture it on there. It's definitely an improvement. And with the color scheme, with the white at the top, it'll help it blend into the sky better, so it doesn't really look like a block or something. I'm good, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
I'll explain it out loud.
Yeah.
Discussion.
Yeah. What's that?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your presentation.
No, that was it.
You're good?
Yep, that was it.
I'm so glad you brought that picture.
Short and sweet. And I'm sorry, again, I didn't bring more, but you know,
That's
when-
okay.
when we get the samples, we can see it. But for someone who hasn't been up against one of these buildings, it
Yeah, that makes a huge difference
doesn't
because I
really
was
show,
scared.
doesn't really show a lot. But these are these exact, from the same manufacturer, the same rhythms. They're just a slightly different color.
Yeah, that's
and
amazing.
not much in the white.
Questions?
My big issue is the corporate colors, honestly. The picture there of the green and tan, it looks attractive. The blue looks like a storage facility that you would put up on a hill out of the way, back in the woods somewhere.
With boats in it.
Yes.
Well, so can I just ask you a question, Mike, right? If you look at the blue behind you, how do you feel about that blue?
It's hard to say.
It's
you know,
a work in the right
have
direction,
to
but
see a
not.
picture, like this little, I put a couple little portholes up on the top here. I want the buildings, we have one opportunity. You see the little portholes I put? You can see these buildings driving up Weirs Boulevard. You can see them from Weirs Beach, Lakeside Avenue. You can see them from all over. I just want them to be pretty, prettier than it looks like you lock it, you store it, you lock it, you keep the key place.
Gunstock.
The tan and green looks good.
So I will say, the reason why I asked that question is because we're not locked on, this is, call it electric blue, is probably a good way to put it. And the corporate color, when you look at these renderings, is much closer to the blue that you see here on this paper, which has much more gray, it's much more diffuse. It's not actually quite as glossy as this. It has the goal is to have a warm feel, but also be nautical. The blue was chosen deliberately for that, you know. So, and as well as the gray is maybe not pewter enough. There may be a slight variation thereof, but it was tough to match with the paint colors, but we're trying to soften the facade as well. We're not looking for this to scream fire engine or anything, no offense. Captain. You know,
I'll take it all red.
Yeah, that is like, hey, watch out. And we're looking to be, hey, you know, come here to have your boat put in the water.
So the corporate blue is more like the renderings then, you're saying?
Correct.
And,
It has much more gray in it.
and is there a gray over there? I didn't
There
see-
is.
Oh, okay, I guess that's.
The gray next to the white.
Okay, yeah. That's okay.
And I would
Thank you,
say
thank you.
that the gray may have a bit more soft tone to it. This is almost an off-white, but you know, so if you use these, this is generally a decent depiction of what they were looking for.
What about Mike's suggestion about some kind of port, has a nautical, port, like boat windows? Is that a feasible, practical?
Generally, you don't find openings in the sides of these rack buildings, mainly because it lets the weather in.
Or it could be plexiglass.
And we also have to be really careful about where the structure is and the wind loading. So up that high, it would be tough to make that happen. Maybe not impossible.
I think we were thinking fake.
Maybe cost prohibitive.
Fake?
But because we do have high 30s, 40 pounds of wind load up at that height. So that's why we left the building solid.
So Stacy was saying it could be just fake or, simulated.
We had talked about painting
Mhm.
on the facade of the building, whether it be a logo or something that had a nautical feel to it. But we hadn't quite gotten that far because we were really just focused on materiality at this point.
Right.
We have also talked about lighting, but we haven't quite gotten that far. We just really wanted to focus your attention on what we were trying to achieve with the aesthetic, and then, signage and lighting, final lighting would come a little bit later.
The other picture you have with the tan and green with the little archway, that building just looks much, much better than your rendering below. It's the design, it's the little square, the cutouts, the archway. It's attractive building.
So this building, what's a bit different about this, and I just for clarity, this is a storage building with doors. So these two big panels are doors that actually open up. So, we looked at a variety, probably 7 different iterations of material selections that we thought would meet the goals that were emphasized at the last meeting and variations thereof. And what we really liked about this is that it really scaled down the buildings. It really focused your attention on the more horizontal configuration, which I think we can all agree is a bit more appealing, certainly than the vertical. But I'm tasked with staying within their corporate standards, so I can't really say we could do a green and a yellow building, I will add that the next phase is all of these white buildings here, and there's a desire to tie this whole thing in, even though they're all different uses, sales, repair, and storage. We really want to have need to have the facility and master plan have a cohesive design. So we're keeping that in mind with the material and color selection as well.
So your renderings of the blue, though, are just complete. We lost our picture.
It's here. And I
No,
can-
yours, the blue, that's just showing us a flat blue. We won't be able to, we're not able to see the shingle type effect on
So
your
if you were to
renderings,
come-
correct?
If you were to come up to the easel, you can see the lines.
Oh, you can.
Yep.
I-
And maybe not in the 8.5 by 11, but On the full size, certainly.
No.
No, not on this one. Yeah, the big
Do
one.
you have?
He's got the big picture.
Oh, okay, yes, see, I didn't see that, all right.
When you hire the steel erectors to come put this building up and you tell them they're gonna put steel siding up horizontal, I want to stand there because I want to watch their faces.
Yeah, so, okay, so the building manufacturers always already said, we don't do horizontal. But the siding supplier has said we do it all day long.
Really? Okay.
So, and I've done it.
Okay.
So, and really what it means is additional girts
Exactly,
in the
yeah.
horizontal sections. We just have to be deliberate how we do that. And we have to convince the building supplier that
That's what you're doing.
they're gonna do it. So, but if we say, obviously, this is very deliberate and there's a cost to do that. You guys have said we want that feel to the building, so we're planning to proceed with that in mind.
So I'm trying to remember, did we approve the application and we're, except for
Yes.
this piece?
Yep.
So I guess the board needs to vote on that particular piece of the
Oh,
application.
Mr. Chair, you
I'm just-
hang on there. Check this out. It does look a little. It does look a little different.
It does.
I don't know if they want you to write on
You guys make.
You want to paint it
Stop it.
green while you're at it?
that. I actually, you know what? I tested it. I don't know if that actually would work.
This is a personal comment. I appreciate A, your appearance, and B, your demeanor compared to what we've seen earlier this evening. Thank you.
I wonder
I-
if
The
just a
board the
logo. on
You know-
respect to put a jacket on and
I'm a Christian guy. Everyone
Yeah.
comes in different
Do we
shapes
wanna
and
have
sizes.
them when
I
they get
just,
to
you know,
sign it?
I feel like I have to come to you guys with my
Oh, and then
best,
like-
because,
oh,
I'm safe. Thank
Their
you.
logo.
thank you.
Is your logo an anchor or?
It's a wave. It's a
Or
wave.
it's bigger on the back.
Oh,
Yeah, wave with what's that, an echelon?
Yeah.
Or the sun?
Sun and mountains.
And
Yeah,
mountains,
sun
yeah.
mountains over kind of a water. I got it really big on the side.
There he goes.
it is cool. I wonder, that would look good on the blue part. Maybe.
White part.
And I will say, I
Blue.
didn't really want to get too much into it, but there's a specific emphasis to keep the blue all aligned, because there may be a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a logo or a naming, or, you know, we have to be careful of lit signage for zoning reasons.
Right.
And we don't want to have a big, you know, mural per se, but the aesthetic on the exterior of the
The
building.
logo. Okay.
Gotta be careful. When you say that you're gonna maintain, you're gonna try and keep the siding at the same level
So that's,
all the way across.
that's why these bands correspond with each of the buildings.
Okay.
So there's an emphasis also on the open space, which you can see on the elevations.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Okay. If I'm remembering back to the conceptual design and everything, this bottom picture up there on the plan set that he's showing, there's actually going to be a lot more going on between those buildings and the water's edge, if I remember right. There was talk of a sidewalk going past and some other stuff to keep the pedestrians away from that narrow street where, yeah, there's a lot of stuff. So I just wanted to point out that it's also deceiving in his renderings there, because you just see nice green grass going up to this big building, but it's not going to be that way. There's going to be some visual breaks in there with sidewalks and, I don't know, maybe a fence and people walking by and a vehicle parked here or there. So it's not gonna be so, hey, I set a freaking 60-foot block Lego down in here. That's just my thing, because I mean, they're going, you know, with what our suggestions were, and they're making changes to accommodate some of our suggestions. And I think we're getting good. If you look at that, just remember there's going to be other stuff in front of that. So it's not just going to be that big block. I mean, I think we're doing good.
Thank you, Brett. I appreciate that because you're right. I forgot that there is going to be breakup of this. It's not just slap down like we're on the moon here.
Yeah, I very much as well appreciate that, Brett, because we do have 2 different patio areas, planting beds, trees and bushes, as well as the railings between the buildings will be wood. You know, we want to have some of the seating areas would have some wood integrated with them. So it would all be softened in a very similar way, just a much cleaner configuration than what's there now, but because we would have planting beds and flowering plants.
I really appreciate the work that you've done. Thank you. Is there any more discussion on this?
I wait till the motion.
Great, we're at 9:30. We have a motion.
Do we?
Do we?
No.
I thought you were gonna make
No,
one.
I said I'll wait till the motion.
Oh, great. Anyone care to make a motion?
I don't have the application number in front of me. Do I?
Just refer to the address.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion that we finalize the application for 18 Endicott North, North Water Marine, to accept the review of the external paneling of the boat storage buildings as presented at this meeting.
Thank you. That's
Second.
fine.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good effort.
Let's try.
Roll call?
No,
No?
discussion.
Discussion?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Charlie.
I'd like to make a discussion or a comment. I just in keeping what I said after our last applicant about nobody showing up who were opposed to that applicant. We didn't have that shortage of people that were opposed to this applicant, the 2 prior meetings. And the only people I heard speak in favor of the applicant were the applicants themselves. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I believe that was the case. And I appreciate all the stuff that's being done on the ground level, but that was never the complaint of the abutters. For the most part, it was all about the height of the building. So it really doesn't matter to me, or I think the people that are complaining for the most part about the height, what's on the side of the buildings. The situation is you still can't see through the buildings themselves, and they're just too high for that particular property. So with that in mind, that's why I'm going to be voting no. Not on the applicant, but on the design, because it really has not, it's not going to do anything to pacify the complaints of the applicants. Not the applicants, sorry, the abutters or people that are in that area who have commented about this. So that's all I want to say. Thank you, Madam Chair, for giving me the time to make that commentary. Thank you.
Real briefly, just 1 minute.
That's fine.
I joined the planning board because they built the Cumberland Farms, McDonald's, and Dunkin' Donuts all within a year's time. And I said to myself, why did they make them build them more attractive like they do in Vermont? You don't see the big golden arches. They don't allow to have golden arches. You know, so you have an opportunity when you're putting a new building up to make it pretty. These buildings are going to stick out for a long distance. We have an opportunity to make them prettier. And honestly, Mike, you came back with basically the same thing that you left with 2 months ago. It's a blue building, corrugated metal. not very attractive. I would love to see some porthole windows up on the top. It's just something to make them not look like a storage facility that is out,
They are.
that should be in the woods. They are storage facilities, and we can't stop the 60-foot height. That's just allowed by the rules. They're allowed to do it, they're allowed to do it, but the buildings should be more attractive. And basically, it's the same thing we had 2 months ago.
Yes.
He lost me when he mentioned Vermont.
There's some liberals among us.
There are?
Well,
He said there's liberals among.
You mean there's open-minded people?
No,
Okay.
no, we didn't mean that at all.
Charlie, I think, went for the Democratic Party.
Yeah, he did. He probably likes Vermont too.
Am I allowed to address Charlie's comment?
No.
I have a comment. May I make a comment, Madam Chair?
Yes.
I think the applicant has made a considerable effort to address the board's concerns about the exterior appearance of the building. I mean, the bottom line is it's a boat storage building. You can only dress it up so much. The height, you keep saying 60, I think it's 56 feet, isn't it?
56.
56 feet. Okay, it's a high building. But, the nature of this business, to store boats, you have to go vertically to make it cost effective, et cetera. I wish we could build those buildings right now and we could all drive down Weirs Endicott Street and see how they look. Is it really obtrusive or are they blending into the background? That's unfortunately, we can't do that. I like to think that despite the height, there is an elevated bluff behind a lot of the buildings that's going to kind of give the illusion, if you will, that maybe, they're not that high. It's not like you're standing at the bottom and looking up a skyscraper. When you have a bluff behind it, I think it's going to change your optics. That's just my opinion. And I do commend the designers and the developers for making an effort to soften the exterior appearance of the buildings. And I understand corporate branding, color schemes and all that. Nice to see some of that maybe on the side of the building. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Here.
Any other discussion?
Sorry, I started all that. Not
It's
really.
okay.
We could have voted.
Can I make a comment just real quick?
Yes, Brett.
The great thing about living in the Lakes region is that there is the boating and it brings in a lot of money to the area. And sure, it would be great if everybody that owned a boat could own lakeside property and have their own dock, but that's not the case. And if we don't allow people to bring in boats that don't have their own dock on the lake, we're going to be shooting ourselves in the foot. I think the new proposed buildings are a lot better than the ones that are there now. Like was mentioned from Scott mentioned, there is a bluff behind it. It's not going to be that noticeable. And from the other side, if you actually drive along and look over towards that across the channel, it's all built up along there and there are trees in between and stuff. So really from driving, you can't see it. It's going to be the boat people that see it. And they're going to be the boat people that are taking their boats out of those facilities. I think they've done enough to try and appease our concerns. And I think this will be a good thing in the end.
Thank you. So I believe I had a motion
In a second.
and a second. We're just waiting for a roll call.
So for the motion for finalizing the application and accepting it, Scott McWilliam,
Yes.
Michael Delavecchia,
No.
Brett Bellevue,
Yes.
Richard McNeil,
Yes.
Bruce Cheney,
Yes,
Charlie St. Clair,
No,
Kirk Biati,
Yes.
Stacy Susie.
Yes.
So the vote passes with 6-2.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time, guys. And the
And
late
good
night.
luck.
Appreciate it.
Moving on, we have on old business. I was hoping that Dean was able to find out why the height got changed.
I have not been able to find that yet, so I would suggest you delay this till February.
And
I
do
second
need-
that suggestion.
No, I don't, we don't,
Sorry.
you want these?
don't need
There
a,
you go. Yeah.
Does
good
that
stuff,
need a
yeah.
vote?
No.
or
Wait a minute, you've
motion?
got, he's asking to speak. Our other board member,
Oh, Brett.
Brett, thank you.
No. I just said that I second that suggestion to put it off.
Oh, okay. To
Okay.
Feb.
So we're gonna have a discussion on that?
No,
He was not able to look up the
I heard
reasoning.
that. I heard that. The only thing that bothers me, Madam Chair, is that this, and I understand this, but this pushes us off another month. And if we have another application between now and next month for Lakeside Avenue, that's a problem in my mind. So, I mean, I don't know how much longer we're gonna wait on this thing, but the reality is the height was raised, and I'm sure Dean knows this, or other people know this, the height was raised to encourage development and give developers a chance to maximize the money on their developments by height. It's not a secret. And we just had an applicant leave who said the very same thing, which was backed up by this board member over here, that the higher you go, we understand it, it's to make more money, to make your pay out. But for us to keep pushing this down month by month, it makes me very nervous because again, unless everybody here disagrees and thinks Lakeside Avenue is a beautiful spot because the hill raises a little bit behind it for 60-foot buildings, I think that you would find that most residents would disagree with that. And right now, Lakeside Avenue can be open to that. And as a developer who wants to tear down a building on Lakeside Avenue, who may very well be looking to do just this thing, to again, maximize his investment. And I'm not talking about the drive-in theater. I'm not talking anywhere on Route 3. I'm talking Lakeside Avenue. And it bothers me now that we're potentially going to be pushing this into the spring. And then bang, Dean's already told us if we get this, if we do change it, it won't be retroactive. So that's my problem with this. And I hate to see this keep getting pushed down. I think this is something that we should jump right on and start the wheels moving. It doesn't mean it's going to happen. City councils would still have, I believe, the last word on this, but we've got to start this process to protect any potential changes that we want to see. Whether it's Lakeside Avenue or Weirs Boulevard or wherever.
I just have a general question. I mean, if we do change it, can the board agree to go higher than what's allowed?
I
but
asked
not-
that
but
last
not
time.
lo-
By special exception.
By special except, so you could, but
But then it goes
but
to
the way it
zoning.
is, now, somebody wants to go 60 foot, we can't say, hey, you have to go lower.
Well,
Because it's,
I don't know. I was very confused after the last
because
after
the
the
code
last city
allows
council
60
meeting,
foot.
which I think you were at,
Mhm.
when some council members asked about this. And I was under the impression after listening to that, at that council meeting was that, oh no, the board doesn't have to go along with everything. The board can say no to things and then go from that point out. But that's not what
My
I've seen
understanding
in
is
my
we
history
can
of the
vote to
board.
go higher, but not lower than what code allow. Am I right or wrong? We can't insist that a developer go lower than what's allowed by code, but we can set it lower and allow them to go higher. Is
That
that
would be special exception. I think Dean can
with
explain that
special
better,
exception,
but-
like Mike said? Yeah.
And then they go through zoning, right? Instead of planning.
Could potentially do that. So any of our regulations, we kind of take the attitude, and I'm as guilty as anybody of saying, if they meet the regulations, they should be approved, and they probably should be. The key there is, and we go back to this, and I tried to explain this, and when I was talking with the council, I don't think that was the point to get into the nitty gritty detail, but if the board decides that something, even though it meets the regulation, is not appropriate for that site, or if it's too high or whatever, yes, you could deny it, but your reasoning has to be solid. It can't be, I don't like tall buildings.
Right.
I don't
absolutely.
like the color purple. I don't
Absolutely.
like that style of fence. If that's your reasoning for denying something, you're going to lose in court and the judge will make the decision for you. And trust me, you don't want that to happen. But if your reasoning is there's a church next to it and this building is going to overshadow the church, and then on the other side, there's this historic building and this building is going to overshadow the building. That's the reason why it's too tall.
Or
That's a reason that, and I don't know if that will hold up in court either, but at least it's a reason that you're giving for denying or requiring something different.
Or you could say that you're potentially adversely affecting a business right next to it or across from it, their livelihood.
And you could say that, but the proof is in the pudding, and it's like, you've got to give some evidence of why you
That's
think
not-
it's that way.
That's fine.
But
We're
we-
all thinking people here. That shouldn't be a problem, I would think.
But then they'll stand up in
different
court.
when it goes
Be
to court.
surprised.
Listen.
Can I say
But
something?
it's no easier for these people. If these people realize they're gonna have to go to court, they may not even try to attempt their project. And I look at Cumberland Farms, not at Weir's
Thank you.
Beach, but at the Public Service Building in Guilford. Cumberland Farms bought that building to put a convenience store there and gas pumps there. But they ran into a firestorm with some abutters there, not even abutters, but like the Mobile Mart. And other people in Guilford who were furious about that. And they just, after they went through what they went through at the Weir's Beach, they just said, "The hell with it," and resold the property. So by knowing that these rules can be, looked at hard, and we're not gonna just be a stamp, they may decide, you know what, we're not gonna do that. And I know the city doesn't want to scare away business. I don't want to scare away business. But I feel that some people are
Yeah.
taking advantage of
But
this.
to Michael's comments earlier, if you truly want to have, I know places in Vermont, you go to Freeport, Maine, and when you're driving down the road go to LL Beans,
Alton Bay.
the McDonald's, not all of Maine, the McDonald's and all that stuff is a very aesthetically different thing. Freeport has zoning regulations and aesthetic regulations that require that. If you truly want to have that in Laconia, you need to make the requirement. You cannot, I strongly advise you
Pick and
not
choose.
to apply it on a case-by-case basis,
Yeah.
because I don't like that.
Right.
I want it to look better. That's what's wrong with that argument, But if you want to have an aesthetic regulation, we can do that. But we've got to,
I didn't say all of Maine, I said Alton Bay.
Alton Bay,
Alton
sorry.
Bay on the circle, the McDonald's does not have the
I
big
didn't even know
arches.
there was a McDonald's there.
Bingo, they're there, right on the circle.
There's an Aroma Joe's too.
Mhm.
And that's why you
Oh,
don't
sure.
know that it's there, because they don't have the signage. Let me just point out, that is why I mentioned when we're talking about this height restriction, we should put maybe a height restriction in that has, say, whatever we decide, 50 feet or no more than 5% above any abutting structure. Because then you're not building some monstrosity that's overtowering something else. But yet, if there are large structures there already, you can still build a large structure. Because basically, when it comes down to it nowadays, people don't, excuse my French here, but people don't give a crap about what a building looks like if it doesn't make money. So if you want to limit some stuff in some of our zones, we are not going to get developers to come in and put buildings up and build. They're going to be old buildings that sit around. No one wants to maintain them. Hypothetically, it might burn and then sit there burnt for a while and stuff, so somebody can collect insurance money and nothing happens to it, and then it's just an eyesore. So we have to look at both sides of the thing here. So maybe it's not just a number we're looking at, but maybe it has to fit in with the surrounding structures.
Well, there's no 60-foot buildings on Lakeside Avenue, Mike's, I'm sorry. Brett. So that would be a real easy one. I think the tallest buildings on Lakeside Avenue are Tower Hill.
So,
Or the marketplace, or.
Yeah, the marketplace, right.
However, historically, a couple of the hotels that used to be on Lakeside Avenue
Mhm.
certainly were 60 feet tall. The ones that burned and are gone and
I
have
don't
been
think
gone
they
for
were
100
6 stories.
years.
They were up high on the hill there.
I'm just saying,
I think they were 40 feet.
My only point is it's difficult for the board to justify a decision based on, I don't like,
I hear you. I hear you.
versus we have a regulation and
Yeah.
then we can give relief to a regulation if you want to. I mean, we have a process to do that.
Well, I personally couldn't agree with you more that it's not, we're not here for, we shouldn't be here for personal stuff. We're here to represent the city. So it shouldn't be a matter that I don't like blue or I don't like green. It should be,
I appreciate your statement. You're absolutely correct. It is likely at some point in time that somebody's going to come in with a proposal for a tall building on Lakeside. But I can assure you that we have time.
It sounds to me like we could lower the requirement to 40 feet and allow it to go higher by special exemption. But it's when you make them go lower that you run into problems, perhaps
well,
potential
that's
legal
exactly
problems.
the point.
Well,
of
yeah, so
this
I'm
discussion.
saying, right, so, I think.
so would you support changing the ordinance?
I would, as long as, we all understand, the board.
Okay, and Mike
understands
does.
It is possible
Rich?
to create, to allow special exemptions.
The issue with that becomes is, it goes back to, do we have now a developer who's just gonna walk away and say, I'm not even gonna touch it, because,
Well, that's okay. Another developer can come in with different ideas.
well, and then, but how long does a piece of property sit stagnant?
Around here, not so long anymore.
Well,
Depends on the property.
yeah,
Yeah. Not so
we're
long.
still, not much going on a surf coaster.
Right.
Can I just make a point right quick? It wouldn't be a special exception, it would be a variance.
Okay, well, that would be granted by the
Thank you.
ZBA.
And not to cloud the issue, but when we're talking about weirs, performance zoning has been approved, so they could propose a 100-foot building. And if you want, as a planning board, if you want to approve that, you could. Obviously not on Lakeside Avenue, but
Right.
maybe on
That's
the
all we
drive-in
got
side
left up there is
or
Lakeside
whatever.
Avenue, pretty much. That's all we got.
I guess the question is, if you want to do it, what is the number that you want to propose? What, and it, is it 45 feet? Is it 40? Is it? And is it for the whole zone, or is it just for the properties along Lakeside, or is it other streets
Well, I
that
think we
need to
should
be?
discuss that, but I think that it should be discussed.
Can I?
No,
I
not
think the
tonight.
council, I think the council voted to agree to performance zoning with the idea that, as you just said, if somebody came in and said they want a 100-foot building, it's allowable with permission.
Yeah, with planning board approval, sure.
Right. To then, I mean, and so, and I can't speak for the other council members, but I can tell you what my sense is. They agreed to it. And if we now come in and say, now we want to micromanage,
Right, yeah.
where this performance zoning goes,
No, but
let me finish my,
of course.
I think they're gonna, the folks that I know on the council are gonna go, wait a minute, what? We just agreed to performance zoning. Now we're gonna agree to accept on this corner and in this spot over here. I think we have to rely on the ZBA and the planning board to make value judgments that the performance zoning allows, and that we can agree is good for the area. I don't, Charlie, I just don't know that you can go to the council this soon and say, let's change the performance zoning we just approved.
So along those lines, let me, maybe this will ease your mind a little. So at this point in time, based on discussion, okay, if someone were to come into the office and say, we're interested in parcel X, and this is what we want to do on it, I can assure you that we would tell them at that particular spot, you're not going to get that height. The planning board is not going to do that. And
It worries me what that height is, though.
well, I'm just saying, I'm just saying, to give you an example. For 4 years now, we've been telling people in the weirs, you can't do indoor storage. And most of them have gone away. We had one persistent person who went to the ZBA and said, I want to get a variance. And they said, no, because the city council just recently decided this and said, we don't want to have storage units, indoor storage units in there, so we're not going to give you the variance. The message, and now, silly me, and said, okay, the zoning board is not going to give it based on what the city council did 6 years ago. Perhaps there's a change on the city council, perhaps there's not. So we put forth the proposal of, do you want to do indoor storage or not? And the answer emphatically is no.
You got slapped around is what he's trying to say.
So I can assure you that our message is back to anybody who comes in and wants to do indoor storage in the weirs is no way, Jose. I can assure you that the same message for someone who would come in, say, on Lakeside Avenue and say, oh, we want to put up a 70-foot building because there's performance zoning and we can, I would say to them, go ahead and try, but you're not going to get it.
Right.
And that goes a long way, Charlie.
I believe you, Dean, and I respect that. And I would hope you guys, I know.
Because they're not going to spend thousands of dollars on engineered drawings and everything else to get a big fat no.
But wouldn't you like some sort of consensus, even if it's on an individual basis here, not tonight, of what kind of height we would be looking at, where the magic number would be saying, I don't think that's going to work?
Sure.
Problem is it's arbitrary. The
I
number's
don't have a lot of
arbitrary.
confidence that
Yes,
I'm not, that we're
But
going
we
to have
know what
consensus
30
on what
feet
that
looks
number.
like. We know what 44 feet
But
looks
it also
like.
depends on where it is.
Right.
We know what 60 feet looks like. Now we know what 50.
Can I ask a question?
But 60 feet.
Yes,
you know,
Brett.
different places too.
Dean, question for you.
Yes.
If it's performance zoning and if Lakeside Avenue is all the same zone and everything, we can't apply a different height restriction just to Lakeside Avenue. Wouldn't that be a sort of spot zoning?
Well, performance zoning gives you the ability to pass go, collect $200 and really control that kind of stuff. So there's an upside to performance zoning from the standpoint from developers may get some additional things that they would not normally get, but there's also the upside the other way, that you have more control over or what happens on a particular site.
Right, but so the performance zoning would be to go above what is allowed in that zone. But what we're talking about here is changing the maximum height allowable in that zone, period. Not even considering performance zoning yet, but changing it in that zone, but just for Lakeside Avenue. So basically we're creating almost a new zone just for Lakeside Avenue because of height restrictions. And to me, that seems like a form of spot zoning.
But what I'm saying is that performance zoning could work both ways for the board in that if you're on the drive-in site or some other site further inland, you may not have a problem with 70 or 80 feet. And then I don't know that anybody's going to come in at that height, but I'm just trying to be a little descriptive here. But on the other hand, if you truly don't want tall buildings on Lakeside Avenue, that works in your favor as well, because it goes both ways. Whereas under a normal site plan, yes, you could still say no, but you better have a real good reason and be prepared to fight.
So I'm kind of confused by what you're saying. So what my point is, if we would say along Lakeside Avenue, you're restricted to 40 feet. That is creating a subzone in that zone because Lakeside Avenue is not its own zone. So
Correct.
basically we are doing spot zoning just for Lakeside Avenue. Yeah, if we did that, we could always approve under the performance zoning overlay, something that's higher. But strategically, if somebody's not requesting something through performance zoning or whatever, we can say, nope, you're 40 feet, you're limited to that. That's kind of spot zoning.
I don't care what you call it, as long as there's a
Well,
thing going out there saying, don't do this.
I hear you. Technically, no, because it depends on how we do it, but you're doing it ahead of time and you're doing it without a specific proposal in front of you. Spot zoning is more, McDonald's comes in and decides they want to be on Shore Drive and you rezone a parcel of land so that they can put a McDonald's on Shore Drive. Not going to happen. I'm just using it as an illustration. That's spot zoning.
Great idea.
It is.
Right, but we were
Very
talking,
convenient. Anyway.
but the
So
whole
it's-
spot zoning thing came up downtown when we were talking about the historic overlay. And there's sections of downtown that do not really need to be in there. But you had advised us that, well, that would be more spot zoning. And so we said, okay, well, let's just include this whole area then.
Right, because you were picking out particular parcels as opposed to a general thing. Take the concept of the RR2 corridors that we have along Parade Road, Meredith Center Road, and White Oaks Road in that we have this different zoning numbers for 200 feet, 400 feet, whatever it is, 400 feet on either side of these streets. That's not spot zoning. That's just, we've created a zone for the whole thing. It applies to every property within that 400 feet. You could do a similar thing for Lakeside Avenue. You could say, you could create a CR1 and make it every parcel that abuts Lakeside Avenue. And however far you want to go down on scenic, but
Right, so
could do
it's
that.
not exactly us just changing the height requirements, it's the zoning board creating a new zone, so to say.
well, the planning board creates the zones. It's a planning board, and then you got to get final approval from the council. Because you're changing an ordinance.
And I'm suggesting to you, the council is going to look skewance at. Okay.
But to quote someone from across the room, keep on trying.
Okay, on that note, we are at 10 o'clock.
I never said that.
Would anybody like to make a motion to end? Oh, I have a second also.
You can do that by voice.
All in favor,
Yeah,
which I don't
yeah,
think
yeah,
I
yeah.
said all night.
Yeah.